Alright, so picture this. I'm 2 videos into this Ninja Gaiden retrospective slash commentary slash analysis strand type video, fresh off of Ninja Gaiden 2, going into 3. I'm playing this shit, and I get to the first Ayane mission. She's in this game, just like the last 2, and apparently she gets a whole lot more screen time here. I'm checking out this cutscene where she's chilling in the salon naked, no clothes on, dogs out, and I start thinking to myself, who even is Ayane anyways? I know she's from DOA, Team Ninja's fighting game IP, but truth be told, I'm not a fighting game guy. And I never really bothered to check this series out despite being such a fan of Ninja Gaiden. So, being naturally curious, I decided to do a little bit of research into DOA, and needless to say, a little bit of research ended up being much, much more than what I had bargained for. Dead or Alive is a 3D fighting game series developed by Team Ninja, and most importantly, Team Ninja's former executive producer and avid sunglasses enthusiast, Tomonobu Itagaki. If you're coming off of the Ninja Gaiden 2 video, you already know who this guy is, and if not, let's just say he's got quite a history with the company. To avoid retreading old ground, in my last video, I already talked about his later years and the whole debacle with Tecmo, so if you're not in the know, the top right has you covered. I felt the need to make this video for a few reasons, mostly because this game's lore is fucking insane, but also to bridge my last Ninja Gaiden video into my eventual Ninja Gaiden 3 video, since canonically, a majority of DOA takes place in between those two, and Ryu's kind of a big deal in these games. Essentially, plot events unfold in this series that make their way into Ninja Gaiden 3 in some way, shape, or form. Trust me, DOA's story goes beyond the surface level of volleyball and shameless objectification of women. There is some well and true crazy shit that goes on in this series, and if you ever wondered why Ninja Gaiden's narrative was so weak, it's probably because all of the creative energy went towards this series instead. There is a ton of shit to cover throughout this series, and I, Weenop of Brain Alert, painstakingly combed through all 6 mainline Dead or Alive games to stitch this series' narrative into one cohesive story, in order to understand just what Itagaki and company were cooking in the studio alongside their action game classic. Now, as a disclaimer, this won't be like the rest of the Ninja Gaiden retrospective videos. This is just covering story details, so don't expect me to comment on the gameplay, visuals, hibbity hoopla, shit like that, because I'm really only concerned about how all of this relates back to our boy in black, Ryu Hayabusa. I covered as much as one man could humanly cover in the span of several months. Also, you guys don't have to. So without any further interruption, I present to you the complete, unhinged timeline of the Dead or Alive games. Before we get into the meat of this shit, I've got to establish some background context that precedes the first DOA tournament. Allow me to introduce the 2 parties that shape the story moving forward, the Mugen Tenshin Ninja Clan and the Dead or Alive Tournament Executive Committee, or DOATEC for short. Starting first and foremost with the former, the Mugen Tenshin clan is an isolated clan of ninja native to the mountains of Japan, and acts as its own sovereign entity separate from modern society. The clan is structured into two sects, the Tenjinmon sect, acting as the ruling but still largely warrior class, and the Hajinmon sect, acting as the elite warrior class. Both are individually governed by a Master Shinobi figurehead which oversees all and any lower-ranking ninja. The clan has existed for 16 whole generations, which brings me to the first characters in the story. Burai, the current head of the Tenjinmon sect, and his two sons, Raido and Shiden. The Mugen Tenshin clan operates under a hereditary monarchy, and both Raido and Shiden happen to possess the potential to succeed Burai as his heir, but with Raido being the eldest of the two, he had dibs on the family legacy. Despite this, both sons were trained in the arts of the clan's exclusive Tenjinmon-style ninjutsu, and in their early years were shown to be equally as prodigious. As time went on, however, Shiden eventually began to surpass Raido in every aspect, which pissed the eldest son off considering he was working just as hard to reach the title of master and to please his father. This resentment eventually boiled into rage, and this rage became deep-seated evil beginning to grow within Raido's heart. As the two grew into adulthood, Shiden remained unflinching in the clan's traditional ways, but Raido's fighting style became increasingly more unhinged, to the point where he was just straight up maiming and mortally wounding his sparring partners when training. Burai took notice of this, and in a decision to ensure the safety of the Mugen Tenshin clan's future, chose Shiden to succeed him as the 17th leader of the clan instead of Raido. This causes Raido to go apeshit. Pushed over the edge and full of piss and vinegar, he exiles himself from the clan and began his ambition to become the strongest ninja in the world. Meanwhile, as a rite of passage for becoming leader, Shiden learns and masters the Torn Sky Blast technique, a ninpo attack known only by the masters of the Tenjinmon sect. This powerful ability allows the user to manipulate their spiritual energy into a single point in their hands and is released as lightning towards their target. This might seem weird to mention, but the move has significance in future events. Years after acceding to the position of Master Ninja of the Mugen Tenshin's Tenjinmon sect, Shiden settles down with a nice young lady named Ayame, and they eventually have two children, Hayate, and 5 years later, Kasumi. Pretty normal stuff, nothing too crazy. However, in the same time span, Raido has been out training around the world, and has perfected a technique that allows him to mimic and straight up steal moves from whoever he's fighting. Once mastered, he traveled the globe and did this shit for years, amassing insane levels of strength and skill in the process. A year or so after Kasumi was born, Raido briefly returns to the Mugen Tenshin village in secret to do a little trolling. He ends up R-wording Ayame, his sister-in-law, and the child that is conceived as a result of this act is none other than Ayane. Since she was an R-word baby, Ayane's mother gave her up, and was instead taken in by leader of the clan's Hajinmon sect, Genra. As a result of the less than fortunate circumstances, Ayane was unaware of her true origins as a child, and actually ended up being very good friends with Kasumi and Hayate, despite being treated as a cursed outcast child by the rest of the clan, and oblivious to the fact that they're even related. But, as things tend to go with family drama, it was ultimately revealed by Ayame that the two were related all along, which brought Kasumi and Ayane's friendship to a grinding halt. Ayane was, justifiably, super pissed at her treatment by the clan, despite being the heir to the clan's half-sister, and also grew to hold a personal grudge against Kasumi, following an entire childhood of seeing her be pampered and respected by everyone in the clan, while she was treated like some kind of devil child freak rat creature. This revelation not only shaped Ayane's bitter, callous personality moving forward, but also her conviction to become a powerful shinobi, stronger than any other in the clan, and devoted herself to the Hajinmon sect. On the other hand, being children of the Tenjinmon sect's master and heir to the Mugen Tenshin legacy, Hayate and Kasumi had comparatively pretty normal childhoods, with Hayate still remaining on good terms with Ayane after her falling out with Kasumi. A young Hayate would even go on to befriend a fellow young shinobi who was also heir to his own ninja bloodline. That young shinobi being none other than And these two weren't just slightly acquainted with each other, nah, these guys were homies, like on some ride or die type shit. Also, for a lot of you, this is probably your first time seeing Ryu without a mask. Yeah, just get used to it, I know it's weird. A few years go by, and Hayate, now 22, is old enough to claim his birthright as the 18th master of the Tenjinmon sect, and personally masters the Torn Sky Blast technique, as is tradition. However, all was not well. Raido was once again afoot, and he was brewing a plan most malicious. You see, Raido never learned the Torn Sky Blast technique since his brother was appointed as master instead of him, and across the last 22 or so years of exile, had never mastered any kind of technique that could rival it. In his conviction to become the ultimate ninja, Raido returned to the Mugen Tenshin village for the second time, knowing that Hayate was next in line as head of the clan, and that he would have already mastered the Torn Sky Blast. So, one stormy night, Raido arrives at the village to once again cause problems on purpose. He has come for his birthright. Ayane jumps into the fray almost out of instinct. Despite training nearly her entire life for this moment, Raido effortlessly solos her with absolutely zero diff, and Hayate launches into action, only to lose his absolute shit after Raido calls him a pussy for letting a woman do all the heavy lifting for him, instead of facing his opponent outright. Hayate, seeing that he's very, very rapidly running out of options and losing his temperament, decides to whip it out. His trump card, the Torn Sky Blast technique, despite Ayane's pleas not to. In his last-ditch effort to defeat him, Hayate inadvertently gives Raido just what he wants, and the two have a fucking beam clash. Unfortunately, Raido's power level far surpassed Hayate's. So he ends up jobbing, goes flying into a nearby tree, and gets folded like a fucking omelet, paralyzing him and leaving the Tenjinmon's heir in a comatose, near-dead, vegetative state. Having fulfilled his daily evil nigga duties, Raido quickly escapes with his newfound ninpo ability, and with the satisfaction of beating the shit out of his nephew. Kasumi would not even be made aware of this incident until it was all said and done, and even then was only told by Shiden that her brother was grievously injured, intentionally keeping Kasumi in the dark so that she could focus on her training and become the next leader of the clan. Hayate is a vegetable now, so he's no longer fit to do anything but have his ass wiped by his caretaker. Even with the Raido incident gag order placed on Kasumi, she still expressed tremendous concern for her older brother, and in between training and mastering the Torn Sky Blast, cared for Hayate in hopes that he would see some kind of meaningful recovery someday, though her efforts would be in vain. Hayate's spine was completely shattered, was left in a comatose state, and would probably remain this way for the rest of his life. Ayane, partly out of spite of Kasumi now heading the title of master, seeing her unfit to lead, and also just generally holding a grudge against her, ends up telling Kasumi the truth behind that fateful day. That Raido had been the one who'd brutally maimed Hayate. Ayane willingly reveals this to Kasumi, knowing full well that 1, this will spark a desire for revenge in her heart, 2, will cause Kasumi to desert the clan to track down Raido, and 3, will leave the Tenjinmon sect without a leader. All 3 of these come to pass, and Kasumi leaves the village in secret to hunt down Raido to enact her vengeance. Word of Kasumi's departure rapidly gets out among the clan, and Ayane is ordered by the Hajinmon sect's master and her adoptive father, Genra, to find Kasumi, and not just stop her from leaving, but straight up orders Ayane to kill her in an effort to preserve the clan's secrecy, as her desertion had marked her as a nukenin, and a major liability. Ayane was actually quick enough to stop Kasumi in her tracks before even leaving the bridge out of the village. The two battle, but before she could deliver the finishing blow, a helicopter swoops in just in time to scoop Kasumi away from danger. This is where the other party comes in. Kasumi was rescued by none other than Doatek. would caught her just in time to escort her to the martial arts tournament that Raito is also participating in. This tournament is the Dead or Alive World Combat Championship, headed by the aptly named Dead or Alive Tournament Executive Committee, founded by CEO Fame Douglas. Douglas had initially established the company as an international weapons R&D venture, essentially profiting off of the war economy. As the company grew, Douglas's gaze instead shifted towards entertainment. He began organizing international martial arts tournaments where fighters can enter for a chance to win title as champion, and a fat check. The tournament was planned under the company's name and was created for the sole intention of entertainment. No evil plot to take over the world or anything like that, just fighting for the sake of fighting. And for the money too, if you're into that. That didn't stop evil shit from brewing though, because it absolutely attracted some evil motherfuckers. With Fame Douglas being a man with so much power, other people within his own company desperately coveted that power. Namely, the head of the Doatech development department, Victor Donovan. Donovan enlists the help of two undercover assassins, Bayman and Christie, to do his bidding, going incognito as Doatech employees to get close enough to Douglas in an effort to put an end to his life. Bayman ends up being a contestant in the first tournament, so I'll get to him more when we start discussing it, but for right now, we're going to focus on Christie, his partner. Both Bayman and Christie had a secondary assignment on top of killing Douglas, and that was intercepting another target and potential contestant for the tournament, a young shinobi from the Mugen Tenshin clan. That's right, the helicopter that came in to rescue Kasumi was manned by Bayman and Christie, two faux Doatech employees with the ulterior motive of coercing Kasumi to join the tournament in the first place. It's here, in this helicopter, where Kasumi learns of Raito's whereabouts. Christie tells her that he just so happens to be participating in the Dead or Alive tournament, and that Doatech is pretty chill and she should, enter the tournament or something. Granted, Christie wasn't lying to Kasumi, Raito is indeed participating, but she still doesn't have Kasumi's best interests in mind, because Christie, or more so Victor Donovan, have even more elusive motives beyond the current scope of the story. All I'll say now is that there's a good reason Christie knew of Kasumi's grudge against Raito before the two even met. With all that being said, the stage is set, and Kasumi is escorted to the luxury cruise Freedom Survivor, where she would then officially sign on as a contestant in the Dead or Alive tournament. A few days go by, and as the start of the tournament is commencing, Kasumi just so happens to run into Ayane, who also received an invitation shortly after Kasumi first arrived on the cruise. She plainly states that she's here to kill her, as well as Raito for crippling Hayate, but the girls' less than friendly reunion is disrupted, as in the middle of the commencement ceremony, the two notice something familiar about Douglas's bodyguard. It's fucking Raito. Why this guy hired a serial rapist and murderer is beyond me. Probably omitted that part in his resume. Ayane immediately starts seeing red. She attempts to murder Raito right after while the two are boarding a helicopter, but he just kinda shrugs it off and Ayane is beaten back like a sack of potatoes. Fame tells the two that if they want to exact their revenge on Raito, they have to abide by the rules. One of them will have to reign as victor in the tournament, and so, the story of the first Dead or Alive tournament kicks off in DOA 1. Wasting no time, we start at DOA 1. Kasumi, along with 10 other contestants, are pitched against one another for the title of champion. Each contestant has their own motives for entering, and we'll take a quick rundown through each. First and foremost, we have our boy, Ryu Hayabusa, the legendary Dragon Ninja, competing in the tournament after receiving news that his childhood friend's sister had suddenly disappeared. If you're coming off of the last 2 Ninja Gaiden videos I've made, you already know a significant chunk of the events spanning Ryu's adult life, and that this guy, he's no slouch. Canonically speaking, DOA 1 takes place just a year after the events of Ninja Gaiden 2, and yes, the events of the DOA games are canon in the Ninja Gaiden games, meaning this video is integral to the greater Ninja Gaiden retrospective series I've been making for like the past 2 years now. Which again, is really why I'm even covering this. For those who may not know, Ryu is not just any normal ninja, he's the Dragon Ninja, and has quite literally saved the world on 2 separate occasions at this point in his life. His physical feats are nothing short of borderline supernatural, and the Dragon Lineage's power is derived from the same ancestral magic as the Fiends, essentially demons in this game's universe. This guy is, I shit you not, running around with demonic blood in his veins. Despite these Herculean feats that put most regular fucking people to shame, he decides to accept an invitation to the tournament so that he can not only keep an eye on Kasumi to ensure her safety out of respect for Hayate, but also because he wants to fight. Ryu wants a good challenge. Ryu is participating in a martial arts tournament against regular people because he wants a challenging battle. Keep in mind, this is after he killed the fucking Archfiend. You know, the fucking devil. Now, admittedly, I have been tiptoeing around the fact that DOA 1 came out 8 whole years before Ninja Gaiden was rebooted into the modern 3D era. So, technically speaking, this Ryu is actually the one from the NES era of Ninja Gaiden, but in later entries this is retconned into being the modern Ryu most of us know and love today. So we're going with that. Regardless, Ryu has entered the ring out of consideration for Kasumi, which is sweet. Also, Ryu owning an antique shop is canon to the modern games, and no one can convince me otherwise. Next up is DOA's obligatory Bruce Lee stand-in, Jan Lee, an impoverished orphan boy turned martial artist. In his youth, to cope with his lack of parents, Jan Lee would watch hours upon hours of martial arts films, where he picked up an interest in fighting. At first, he used it as a way to deal with the loss of his parents. But once he mastered the art of Jeet Kune Do, mind you from literally just watching movies, he began fighting for the simple thrill of it. Eventually, Jan Lee had put his aptitude for fighting into a small-time career as a bouncer at a club in his home country of China. Among dealing with general troublemakers and hooligans, Jan Lee once saved a young girl from being mugged by a gang of unscrupulous rapscallions. But unbeknownst to Lee, the girl was too a martial artist, and was fully prepared to take on the thuggery by herself. Jan Lee stepped in and saved her, with the girl being grateful but still feeling almost condescended by the whole experience. She became determined to train hard enough to find and defeat him herself one day. A few years later, Jan Lee enters the tournament to challenge the strongest fighters in the world, and his actions several years earlier would come back to face him once again, because the girl he ended up saving just so happens to be the next contestant on the list. Here we have Lei Fong, the impulsive yet determined prodigy of the Taiji Quan martial arts, or you might just know it as Tai Chi. We already kinda covered her backstory with Jan Lee, and that's the only reason she's here, to beat his little punk ass for saving her life. Next we have Bayman, another character who kinda feels like he was included to hit the fighting game cliché quota, this time being the token Russian guy. Bayman's origins are ambiguous at best. Bayman isn't even his real name, it's just what he's called in the criminal underworld. Despite the Russian military being the one solely responsible for murdering his parents right before his very eyes, a young Bayman aspired to rise the ranks of the KGB and establish himself as the cream of the crop of Russia's special forces. Bayman was eventually discharged, and decided to keep the momentum of a violent life chugging happily along, since he picked up the professional assassin trade not long after, which leads him to where we are now. Bayman's sole motive is to kill his target, Fame Douglas, and get paid. He also really likes beef stew, and playing chess. He's a simple man. After Bayman, we have Zack, the self-taught Muay Thai boxer and funky DJ. Zack is an American, and as such, he does it all for the money. He's also a big fan of Ryu's curio shop. Apparently, he's a regular customer. Can you imagine being in this guy's shoes? The fucking dude you see all the time. Think about it. The dude who owns your favorite shop also happens to be one of the contestants of the tournament you're attending. But that's not all. Imagine signing up for this shit and getting told, yeah, you know that guy who makes your Subway order every week? You have to fight him. He's also the strongest guy in the fucking world. He killed a being so powerful its resurrection tore a hole in reality. He can also defy gravity. Unless Zack knew about Ryu's inhuman feats beforehand, and if that's the case, fuck it bro, it's your life. Zack will be a mainstay in this series. Trust me, you will see this dude numerous times in the future. The next contestant up is Tina Armstrong, daughter of the greatest pro wrestler in the world, Bass Armstrong, aka fucking Hulk Hogan, and I'm not kidding, look at this guy. Both her and Bulk Bogan enter as participants, but their motives for joining differ heavily. Tina enters with hopes of public exposure and eventually becoming famous in Hollywood. Being the daughter of a prestigious pro wrestler, she spent most of her life training in, well, the arts of wrestling, and was naturally tutored by her father. Bulk Bogan, this is just what we're calling him now. I don't know if it's like bass like the fish or bass like the instrument. Both are kind of retarded, but who the fuck names their child after a fish? This is my son Koei, who I wish was dead. This is my other child Crappy. You see my new baby, bony-eared ass fish? He's the one who actually pushed her to go on and take the world, as he put it, which motivated Tina to sign up for the tournament. He did this to hopefully preserve her interest in the sport of pro wrestling. However, Tina is far more interested in the fortune and fame of Hollywood, which her father greatly disapproves of. So, as good fathers do, Bulk enters the tournament to kick his daughter's ass to prevent her from achieving her dreams of becoming a Hollywood star. Last but not least, we have the humble bookstore owner, Genfu. Possibly the most selfless motive out of any contestant, Genfu fights to acquire enough money to pay for his sick granddaughter's medicine after coming down with a serious rare illness. Although he might seem like some old fuddy-duddy, this motherfucker is known as the legendary Iron Fist, and is a master of the Jin Yi Liu He Chuan style martial arts. In other words, Grandpa don't play. Alright, that's every contestant besides Kasumi, Raito, and Ayane laid out. Now it's time for the matchups. The first DOA tournament is pretty tame compared to what's coming soon. Not only that, a majority of the details are also quite vague, so I'm gonna lay out the known matchups as best as I can. Jan Lee does end up facing off against Lei Fong, and prevails in fighting against her. This officially sparks an ongoing rivalry between these two, and Lei Fong resolves to train even harder until next time. Jan Lee later faces Zack and presumably loses, seeing as these two also grew to rival each other as a result of this match. It's unknown where Ryu ended up placing during the tournament. He presumably made it somewhere in the finals due to later events we will inevitably discuss. Can't imagine he was an easy pick though. Genfu loses early on in the tournament to Kasumi. Kind of a shame too, that he made no money off of this shit. He kinda needed it the most out of anyone else. What is known for sure is that 4 contestants had made it to the finals, those being Zack, Jan Lee, Tina, and Kasumi, with the final match being between the last two. Kasumi reigns victorious in the final match against Tina by forfeit, but doesn't take the prize money. That's not what she's here for, so Tina ends up taking the winnings instead, along with whatever earnings she made by coming in second place. Zack also made off with his earnings by making it in the finals. With no other contestants standing in her way, Kasumi's final opponent is the man himself, Raito, and his exclusive arena, the Danger Zone, with explosive hazards placed around the venue. Kasumi ends up giving Raito his long overdue ass beating, and successfully prevails over the man who turned her brother into a paraplegic. Fame Douglas catches news of all this. Baffled, he's quick to discredit these claims, but not quick enough, as he immediately gets the Lee Harvey Oswald treatment by Bayman, who had carried out his duties and eliminated his target. Turns out, he was right. Raito wasn't done just yet. This motherfucker rises from the dead to give Kasumi one last fight. Evidently, Doatek had done some human experimentation on him to increase his strength. These two end up fucking beam clashing, just like with Hayate, and it almost seemed like it's going to end the same way. That is, until Kasumi receives a kunai's worth of help from an unknown benefactor. Our boy Ryu just dropped in from the shadows, and it's just enough to give Kasumi's wave attack a last push to finish off Raito for good.
It's finally over.
The entire arena starts fucking exploding. The whole venue has descended into chaos, and at some point during the frenetic disarray, Kasumi somehow ends up getting kidnapped by Doatek. This is where DOA's story starts to go from semi-normal plot about ninjas and revenge to some real fucked up crazy shit. This is also the bridging point between DOA 1 and DOA 2, where the main character role is shifted from Kasumi, who to be honest really wasn't all too interesting to begin with, to... you already know.
Our fucking...
Ryu Hayabusa, the Dragon Ninja. Ryu notices Kasumi's inexplicably missing and informs Ayane that she's been kidnapped. And also, if you didn't notice, Troy Baker's voicing Ryu's English dub now. Get used to it for, like, ever. It's gonna be like this in Ninja Gaiden 3.
Okay. Tell Hayate I said thanks.
All we know going into the next game is that Fame Douglas is dead. Raito is dead. And Kasumi has been captured by Doatek for unknown, possibly dubious reasons. So with that being said, I don't really have a good segue for this. Check this out. If you thought the story of DOA was a little underwhelming so far, look no further. This is where things kick into high gear. Team Ninja realized that a grounded story is just too fucking boring for a game like this. So get ready for an unholy combination of both sci-fi and fantasy in the next stage of Kasumi's journey. Speaking of which, how is she doing? Oh. Kasumi has been captured by Doatek for the purpose of human experimentation, more specifically, for an initiative codenamed Project Alpha. Before we continue, this is where I need to address a pretty big error in continuity. So following the first tournament, Doatek would proceed to undergo two big projects, Project Alpha and Project Epsilon, the purpose of both to create the ultimate genetically modified warrior. Now the difference between the two is that Kasumi was used as a test subject for Alpha, and Hayate was used as the test subject for Epsilon. The timeline suggests that Epsilon had preceded Alpha, since Hayate had been captured sometime during the first tournament, and after extensive modifications had been made to Hayate's nervous system, he finally emerged from his coma, which was great, but it wasn't what Doatek was aiming for. They wanted to see improvement from Hayate's base abilities, but quite the opposite had ended up happening. Hayate had awoken with all of his skills, being a powerful, near superhuman warrior to begin with. This was meant to be a baseline, but on top of not seeing any remote improvement in his abilities, he also happened to lose all of his memories in the process. He's gone from paraplegic to amnesiac. This guy can't catch a fucking break. With Epsilon being a total failure, and Hayate not really posing too much of a threat with his memory loss, Doatek basically just kinda put him on the back burner, and shifted their gaze towards Kasumi, who, on top of winning the first DOA tournament by now, was also considered the genetically superior sibling, for whatever reason. So, the story goes, Kasumi gets captured right after the end of the first game, and is hurried off to Doatek's top secret base in Germany, where Project Alpha is born. Only they weren't going to modify Kasumi. Doatek plans on fucking cloning her, And wouldn't you guess, they were successful. A little too successful. There's a lot of Kasumi clones. Project Alpha ends up bearing fruit in the form of Kasumi's perfect clone, Kasumi Alpha. Now, here's where the continuity error comes in. Later games, namely DOA Dimensions, suggest that Kasumi Alpha was the one who had captured the comatose Hayate prior to Project Epsilon, but this doesn't really make any sense, because if this is before Hayate was even in Doatek's possession for Epsilon, then Project Alpha doesn't exist yet, meaning Kasumi Alpha shouldn't exist. I first thought I was losing my absolute shit, then briefly panicked because I feared the worst and thought Team Ninja took the time travel route for this game's story, but thankfully, holy shit, thank God, was I wrong. It's just a weird continuity error since DOA Dimensions came out several years after the second game, and with it being the most recent release, we have no choice but to consider it canon. So yeah, I guess Doatek kidnapped Kasumi after the tournament, cloned Kasumi, and now she's on her way to kidnap Hayate. We also have to consider this canon because it plays into the main plot of DOA 2. While Kasumi Alpha had snuck into the Mugen Tenshin village, she managed to get all the way into Hayate's room undetected. That is until she's caught red-handed by Ayane, who's still under orders to kill Kasumi for deserting, immediately attempts to murder her. Now, for reasons unknown, perhaps as a result of Kasumi Alpha literally defying creation herself as an artificial life form and lacking a soul, she proceeds to retaliate by assaulting Ayane's psyche with visions of literal hell. I am not joking. This big ugly fucker is Bankotsubo, a Tengu fiend, and this vision is actually him literally escaping the fiend realm into the human world. Ayane is witnessing a fucking demon escape hell into reality. Being a classical representation of a Japanese Tengu, Bankotsubo has come to wreak havoc and destruction upon humanity. Why did this vision come from Kasumi Alpha of all characters? There is a legitimate reason for that, but for now, Kasumi Alpha makes off with Hayate, and after the fucking nightmare is over, Genra tells Ayane to get Ryu Hayabusa on the case, which is a good call. If anyone is qualified for a job like this, it's safe to say Ryu has a pretty good track record.
You're up.
Ryu's off the coast of Europe during all this and is already doing some espionage into Doatek's antics. He's back on the Freedom Survivor, where the late famed Douglas's daughter, Elena Douglas, announces that she will be carrying on her father's legacy, and that there will indeed be a second tournament that she will be participating in. Ryu's out in the crowd, Gucci down to the socks, unmasked, and is, despite saving the world on numerous occasions, still the victim of racial discrimination. Ryu employs his signature Dragon Ninja Riz and seduces this chocolate vixen all the way back to her cabin. However, right before Ryu is able to administer the goods, he overhears her in the shower talking to an enigmatic third party about Project Alpha. Her ID card was also a dead giveaway that she's one of Doatek's top scientists. So, Ryu ends up stealing her ID, jumps out of the window, and instead flies away with his side hoe. You might recognize this helicopter from Ninja Gaiden 2. It's Sonya, again, now under the alias of Irene Liu, her original name from the classic series. Ryu's got a card and a location for Doatek's lab in Germany, so he's on his way to rescue Kasumi. She's still locked up here, and the whole lab's on high alert after a fire had inexplicably broken out somewhere within. Amidst the chaos, Alpha sneaks into Kasumi's cell and releases her. Lacking self-awareness, Alpha suggests that the two are sisters, but they end up fighting, since Alpha's devotion to Hayate is unreasonably psychotic, and she's upset that the original Kasumi has been hogging all of his attention. Kind of a weird reason to start a fight, but I guess I don't expect a test tube grown abomination to have any type of logical reasoning. Kasumi accepts, now knowing that Hayate's also been captured by Doatek, and the only way she's getting to him is through beating the shit out of her clone. The commotion draws the attention of the brown scientist lady that tried smashing Ryu not too long ago. Yeah, she's here too. Her name is Lisa. She's gonna show up again from time to time. She draws a fucking gun on Kasumi. But before the situation could escalate for the worst, our fucking boy.
That I wouldn't let you die. Now I'm here to make good on my own.
Burst through a nearby vent to save the day. Keeping his promise to Hayate to keep Kasumi alive at all costs, breaks up the fighting and allows the two perpetrators to escape, making off with Hayate in the process. Kasumi and Ryu regroup with Sonia, I know her name's Irene, but I don't really care, and look over data he collected while in the lab. They put the pieces together and confirm that Doatech didn't just experiment on Raido, but they also discover that Hayate's used as a subject too, and has been fully healed. Kasumi, upon hearing this news, almost instantly jumps into action and says she's going to look for him. Ryu hits her with the Ben Shapiro treatment and tells her, as a shinobi, facts don't care about her feelings, and she should stick to a logical line of reasoning. He also pimp slaps her in a fit of incel rage.
Ryu, what the hell?
Kasumi runs off despite Ryu's protests, so he's left with no choice but to send Ayane after her. Ayane was here the whole time, by the way. She does this sort of thing a lot. She manages to track Kasumi down to the peak of a mountain, where the two engage in a climactic duel. Kasumi wins, but only because Ayane misses the final blow with her special beam cannon move. I don't know what this is. While Kasumi is out searching for her brother, we can shift our focus back to the second DOA tournament, where Ryu is single-handedly handing out back-to-back ass-kickings in an effort to save the contestants from Bankotsubo's wrath. He battles the familiar faces from the last tournament until he reaches a newcomer named Ein. Wait, I know this guy! Ryu immediately recognizes that this guy is Hayate, Kasumi's brother. She went looking for him, but he ended up somehow joining the tournament. Hayate confesses that he doesn't know who the fuck Ryu is, but he's here to find out more about his past, because remember, thanks to Doatech's human experimentation, Hayate lost all his memories. Now, we do actually have to discuss how Hayate even got here to begin with. After Lisa and Kasumi Alpha escaped from Doatech's Germany lab, one of their getaway helicopters experienced a sudden engine failure and crashed somewhere below in the woods. This chopper just so happened to be the one carrying a now awakened Hayate. He managed to escape Lisa and Kasumi Alpha following the carnage, and ended up wandering the wilderness for days on end until he passed out from exhaustion. Upon finally giving out, a young martial artist just so happened to stumble upon him in the middle of her training. She drags this homeless Japanese guy back to her house and has him train alongside her under her father, who just so happens to be a karate master who runs his own dojo. This is how Hayate figured out how to fight despite losing his memories. He's so good at what he does, he becomes an instructor at this guy's dojo for a brief period of time. Dude must have picked this shit up pretty quickly, because soon after, he's back in action at the DOA tournament. Hayate and Ryu meet, and they have a brutal fucking fight, and I'm not just saying this. For whatever reason, Hayate's like a mini-boss in DOA 2, and he's legit hard as fuck. I threw him through this clock tower like 14 times, and he's completely unfazed. Hayate jobs, and upon his defeat, fragments of his memory begin to come back to him, and he actually recognizes Ryu, but only vaguely. This reunion is cut short, however. Hayate begins having visions of Bankotsubo himself, which signals to Ryu that he should probably hurry the fuck up and kill this guy already. Honestly, it's kinda weird Ryu even waited until now to fight Bankotsubo. I guess he wanted to make sure everyone was out of the tournament. I'm not really sure why the tournament and Bankotsubo's reincarnation even coincided, but Ryu has arrived to face the Tengu in the flesh, and their battle literally takes place across dimensions. But for Ryu, this shit is literally just another Tuesday. So of course, Bankotsubo gets obliterated by a barrage of fucking ki blasts, and just like that, the evil is once again defeated. Sometime later, atop the very same mountain Ryu defeated Bankotsubo on, Hayate reunites with Kasumi, only his memories are still gone. He doesn't recognize her. Ryu suggests that Kasumi beats the shit out of Hayate in an effort to regain his memories, which somehow works. The in-universe explanation is that fighting will reawaken a shinobi's soul, but she probably just gave him reverse brain damage or something like that. Anyways, the two Tenjinmon siblings have been reunited, and all is well. Except Genra shows up. Remember Genra? Ayane's adoptive father and head of the Hajinmon sect? Yeah, he was behind everything. He's the one who released Bankotsubo into the physical realm, and was in league with Doatek on everything. That's fucking right! He's the reason why Kasumi Alpha assaulted Ayane with visions of Bankotsubo when she stole Hayate, and all of the events that had transpired have led up to this point. All in an effort to kill Hayate and Ryu. What's his ultimate endgame? They never tell us. Who the fuck knows? This was a very weird twist villain, but it'll make a little more sense down the line. Sometime after Ayane was defeated by Kasumi at the mountain, Genra got a hold of her and used his Hajinmon sorcery to mind control her to fight along Kasumi Alpha against our two heroes. Genra's sorcery eventually expires, and Ayane breaks free from his mind control, only to fall unconscious. Hayate and Ryu manage to reign victorious, only for Genra and Alpha to make their escape shortly after. Down with one antagonist, and an even worse one takes his place. Now, this raises a lot of questions. Why is Genra working with Doatek and vice versa? What are they planning to do with Genra? How did Sonya track Ryu to this remote mountain in the middle of nowhere? Oh yeah, Ryu introduces Hayate to Sonya in the scene, and the first thing he asks is how long they've been fucking. Sometime during this conversation, Ayane wakes up, and Kasumi runs off from the mountain, leaving us with one more mystery. Where on earth did Kasumi run off to this time? Only time will tell in the next DOA tournament. But before that, we still have a few loose ends to tie up, sorry. The central story for DOA 2 has been covered, but there's still a few characters that I glossed over that we've gotta discuss. Namely, the current executive patron of the Dead or Alive tournament, Elena Douglas. As I mentioned earlier, she's Fame Douglas's daughter and another contestant in the tournament, entering not only to find out why her father was killed, but also her mother, Maria, who was killed by an assassin right in front of her. Knowing that these events are linked to the tournament, she joins seeking revenge as well as answers. Despite being the heiress to Doatek, she's largely uninvolved in the inner workings of the company. Just like how her father didn't know someone within Doatek wanted him dead, that very same person who had called the hit on Fame Douglas is now pulling the strings from the shadows. I literally haven't mentioned him since before the first tournament, but Victor Donovan is still the one responsible for basically everything Doatek related by this point. Elena hasn't even fully integrated into the corporation yet, so she's completely unaware of the insane science fiction bullshit they're doing behind the scenes, like genetic modification and cloning. Sometime during the tournament, Elena caught wind of Project Epsilon, and eventually just so happened to end up fighting Hayate, who literally is Project Epsilon. She tried picking his amnesiac brain for details, but Hayate didn't even know what she was talking about. This would later drive her to look deeper into Doatek's other projects, namely Project Alpha. She also faced Ayane in the tournament, who, for whatever reason, possibly racially motivated, accused her of being her mother's murderer. Ayane, instead of peacefully diffusing the situation, she fucking doubles down and mocks Elena, saying basically, "So what if I did? What are you gonna do about it, pussy?" And just to clear any confusion, Ayane did not kill her mother. Ayane just loves instigating shit and causing problems. Elena is defeated by Ayane, but leaves the tournament with the conviction to look even further into just what is going on behind the curtain at Doatek. I could go into the other contestants, but by and large their motivations are practically identical to the first game, and I'll only really mention them moving forward if they impact the greater narrative. The only other new contestant I didn't talk about is Leon, a wandering mercenary who lives to ensure his lover's last dying words. He enters the tournament to, guess what, become the strongest man in the world. How sweet. This guy also never comes up in any DOA game again, at least not the mainline story. With the second tournament wrapped up, it's time for the story to continue on in DOA 3. Dead or Alive 3's story is a little more Ayane-centric, as opposed to DOA 2 being Kasumi and Ryu-centric. The narrative is slowly getting more refined bit by bit, makes my job 10 times easier, holy shit. I had scraps to work with for the past 2 games, so things should be getting less opaque going forward. We start back at the Mugen Tenshin village. Hayate and Ayane report back to the Tenjinmon sex master, and Hayate's father, Shiden. Genra has turned against the Mugen Tenshin clan, and Hayate requests that he be allowed to pursue him. Shiden reminds Hayate of his responsibility to take over as leader of the clan, but Hayate wants to bring his sister back into its good graces first. Ayane, still having it out for Kasumi, rejects this notion, and even goes as far as to string this conspiracy theory that Kasumi could possibly even be in cahoots with Genra himself, since they're both traitors. This sends Hayate over the edge, slapping Ayane square in the face and threatening to fucking exile her if she even so much as suggested that ever again. Ayane becomes so distraught over this ordeal that she literally attempts to off herself immediately afterwards because she assumes Hayate no longer cares for her as his half-sister, and is only concerned with Kasumi, which is just a little dramatic, but I can understand how she feels here. After an entire life of ostracization, Hayate was one of the only people left in her clan that even considers her to be one of them, and now she's gone and pissed him off something fierce. Before she can see it through, Ayane's talked down from the act by none other than her own mother, Ayame, which was kinda weird considering the implication was that Ayame didn't even want her daughter due to the circumstances surrounding her conception, but I guess she still has that good old motherly instinct. Good for her. Ayane and Hayate set aside their differences and head out to locate Kasumi and Genra, which is kind of a cool parallel to the circumstances around the first tournament, Kasumi looking for Hayate and Raito, but I digress. Speaking of Kasumi, she's really been off the deep end since the end of the last tournament. Since she's still a runaway of the Mugen Tenshin clan, she has no home to return to, not to mention constantly being hounded and tracked by ninja from said clan. Evidently, Ayane isn't doing a good enough job, so they're sending routine patrols after Kasumi now. She's been forced to go incognito, and currently is LARPing as a high school student in Kyoto. The weeks living in squalor have not been kind to Kasumi. She's fucking passed out on the side of the road with a high-grade fever, and only moved once a random passerby nudged her to see if she was even alive. Kasumi brushes her off at first, but quickly dips the fuck out of there once she sees Ayane, who somehow tracked her down here in her peripheral. Ayane kindly asks the young lady where Kasumi ran off to, but she refuses. So Ayane, being Ayane, instead resorts to forcefully and violently beating this information out of this random, innocent high schooler who just so happens to be trained in Baiji Quan, because this is Dead or Alive. Come on. She also may or may not be related to famed Douglas, but that's not important right now. What is important is that while Ayane hadn't caught Kasumi, they had a good idea on where she'd end up going, along with where Genra may be as well. That's right, the third Dead or Alive tournament. Doatech is hosting a third one, and this time they are totally doing it with evil intentions. Genra had willingly been taken in by Doatech for human experimentation under their now established, but still secretive Mist Wing, headed by Victor Donovan, for their newest round of man-made horrors beyond human comprehension, Project Omega. Through superhuman genetic experimentation, and the data gathered from the past two projects, Epsilon and Alpha, Omega was set to truly be a human weapon of mass destruction, far surpassing anything Doatech had accomplished thus far. Genra had successfully been transformed into Omega, the living weapon. To celebrate, Doatech hosted the third DOA tournament to test Omega's abilities against whichever lucky contestant was unlucky enough to make it to the final round. With Genra, now Omega, clearly being in league with Doatech, Ayane and Hayate set their eyes on the third tournament to track his ass down and give him a firm talking to. They make their way to the tournament grounds on the Freedom Survivor, once again, and happen to run into the same girl who found Hayate unconscious in the woods after the incident at Doatech's Germany lab. This is Hitomi, a Japanese Deutschlander, or more formally, a Nikkei. Her Japanese mother emigrated to Germany and met her father, who just so happened to be a karate master. She catches up with Hayate, who she only knows as Ein, since that was his name when he was still an amnesiac, also because it's his name he signed up for the tournament with, and is introduced to Ayane. Respectfully, she inquires if Ayane is Kasumi, because when Hitomi found Hayate in the woods, all he would mumble was his sister's name, so naturally, she'd be curious. Ayane, once again, being Ayane, took this as a personal affront of the highest degree, and starts beating the fucking snot out of this poor girl. Hitomi manages to hold her own, being highly skilled in karate, and surprisingly ends the fight in a stalemate, somehow being equal to Ayane in fighting proficiency. Out of respect of Hitomi's powerful display, Hayate reveals to her his true identity as a shinobi. The two ninja make their way through the third tournament. Hayate ends up fighting Jan Lee, because he's still around, after he sends Li Fong through a fucking table. Ayane happens to run into Kasumi at one point during the tournament, but instead of following through with eliminating her, as is her duty and personal conviction, she lets Kasumi off easy this time. Genra is a far bigger issue than a personal vendetta, so Ayane figures she doesn't really have time to waste on Kasumi. Well, at least when it comes to killing her. Ayane does beat her ass out of spite though, and Hayate ends up victorious in his fight against Jan Lee, so both end up continuing onwards. As the end of the tournament draws near, Hayate and Ayane argue on who should be the one to defeat Genra. Hayate actually had this exact same argument with Ryu before the tournament started, where the two fought until Ryu ended up pulling the classic on Hayate in the middle of the fight, realizing too late that he was fighting a log of wood the whole time. Legit the oldest fucking trick in the book. I don't know how he fell for that. Ayane argues that, as Genra's adoptive daughter, it's her duty to see it through, as she has a personal motivation to do so. Hayate retorts with, as the newest leader of the Tenjinmon sect, to strike down this traitor where he stands. Only after brutally assaulting each other do they realize, hey, we could just fight him together. In the middle of the conversation, in broad daylight, this random drunk homeless guy walks up to Ayane and starts to fondle her. Hayate luckily springs right into action and begins fighting him. This is one of DOA 3's new characters, Brad Wong, and he's looking for a rare type of liquor called Genra. Yeah, where have I heard that one before? Wong fights using the Drunken Master style, which I immediately fucking love in any game, but it's too bad that this guy's a sexual offender. Following this fucked up event, the tournament rages on, and the next fight is between Hayate and Helena Douglas, who we've got to catch up on a little. The daughter of the former Doatech CEO is once again a contestant in the tournament, but this time around, not willingly. As a result of sticking her nose into places she really shouldn't have following the second tournament, and her interaction with the then amnesiac Hayate, Helena had been apprehended by Victor Donovan and the Mist branch of Doatech. Only wanting to know the truth behind her parents' demise, she admitted that she had no connection to Doatech as a company, and simply wanted answers. So then, she's given an ultimatum. She can either participate in the tournament and gain her freedom and answers, or stay imprisoned and possibly killed by Mist. If that wasn't bad enough, she doesn't just have to participate, because that would be too easy. She has to fucking win in order to gain emancipation. With literally zero other choice, Elena reluctantly enters as a contestant. Donovan sends in Christie, one of his signature goons from all the way back in DOA 1, to shadow Elena and keep an eye on her just in case she acts up, with authorization to straight up kill her if things get too out of control. In an ironic twist of fate, sometime during this tournament, Elena manages to hire her own bodyguard with similar intentions. She hires none other than Bayman, the other one of Donovan's goons from the first tournament, as not only a guardian, but also to straight up assassinate Donovan in the process. You might be wondering, wait a minute, isn't Bayman one of Donovan's guys? Yeah, well, he was, until he was abandoned at the last minute after eliminating Fame Douglas, and was left for dead. Worst of all, he never got paid for all of his hard work. With that being said, Bayman has it out for Donovan, and especially Christie, who personally made sure he was left behind after their work was said and done. Regardless of who's assassinating who, Hayate vs. Elena is a scheduled fight in the tournament, so there won't be any funny business here. Elena recognizes Hayate from their first run-in, and notices that his memories are back. But Hayate's not here for small talk. He knows that she's the heiress to Doatech and demands to know why Genra is in league with them. And most importantly, why does her company keep fucking with his clan? Elena admits that she knows basically nothing, and she and Genra are both essentially puppets of Doatech's will, or more specifically, Mist. After a major ass beating, Hayate tells her that she should probably stay as far away from anything Doatech related as possible, and that he's off to kill Genra. Eventually, the time came for Hayate and Ryu to battle one another, out of both obligation for the tournament and to test each other's strength. The two have a fight only someone like Ryu and Hayate, two inhumanly powerful shinobi, could pull off. I'm honestly kinda surprised how Hayate can even keep up with Ryu. No doubt he's a borderline superhuman warrior, but Ryu's been through some completely crazy shit. He has, without any exaggeration, quite literally been through hell and back. Also, everyone won't stop mentioning how Sonya and Ryu have clearly explored each other's bodies. Despite what the wiki may tell you, these two have absolutely mashed pissers. For the grand coup de grace, Hayate and Ryu begin gearing up for a fucking beam clash. But before they could even make contact, Ayane steps in and ruins the moment. God forbid men have a little fun. Turns out, Sonya has been captured while the two ninja were dueling, by none other than Christie, one of Donovan's trusted assassins. Ryu wastes no time saving his precious Snow Bunny, but before the other two could join in, Hayate notices that something is very wrong. This was but a distraction. Genra has arrived, and he is up to no good. Like, literally, the first thing he does is teleport Hayate and Ayane to actual hell. This happens a lot in this universe. Genra also activates his Devil Trigger and transforms into Omega, his now true form. Both Ayane and Hayate fight the former Hajinmon master to the death in a field of fire and debris. In the middle of the fight, when questioned why he even did any of this shit in the first place, all Genra had to say for himself is this:
Why did you forsake the true path?
Would be more than happy to teach you that final lesson.
And starts turning the tables on our two shinobi heroes. And it really just seems like all hope is lost. That is, until
our fucking boy, Ryu Hayabusa, strikes from the shadows to deliver the killing blow!
Genra Haji, you shall die surrounded by your own illusions. Now!
Except, Genra's a little stronger than he anticipated. So Ayane and Hayate begin charging their final attack, which is this really fucking long and drawn out Mugen Tenshin brother-sister Kamehameha times 10. Like, seriously, guys, Ryu's barely holding on here. And blasts Genra into a million fucking pieces. And that's that. That's it. Genra has been defeated. And yet another one of Doatech's twisted experiments has been foiled. Ayane pays her final respects to her late adoptive father figure by cremating his remains, and she inherits the little rod doohickey that he was twirling around the whole time. Now that is some ninja kino. That's the main storyline for DOA 3 covered, which mainly concerned our 5 main ninjas. Now, Pertaining to the other contestants, a lot of them are still basically the same as they always are. Tina Armstrong, the once aspiring Hollywood model, enters the third tournament to become an actress instead, and as usual, her father, Bulk Bogan, also enters in a bid to stop her. Li Fang competes in hopes to still try and defeat Jan Li, who is likewise competing just for the glory. In terms of characters with actual development, there's 3 we actually do have to talk about. First and foremost, Zack, who had joined a third time around to make even more fucking money, as he'd walked away from the past 2 tournaments with a small fortune, and spent it all both times. His goal this time, to win enough money to bankroll a Vegas vacation. He happened to get his wish, as Zack is the official winner of the third Dead or Alive tournament. Though Ayane had technically won first since she killed Genra, the winnings went to Zack instead due to Ayane forfeiting. She didn't care about the money at all. With his newfound wealth, Zack hightailed it to Vegas, where he not only multiplied his earnings by magnitudes through gambling, but also bagged a bad bitch in the process. Overall, if anyone is winning in this story, it's this fucking guy. Using his now even greater fortune, Zack and his new beloved Nikki bought a private tropical island in the southern hemisphere dubbed Zack Island. Zack fucking Island. Zack proceeded to furnish his personal paradise with hotels and stores, turning it into a well and true resort. After that, he did what any normal man would do, and sent invitations to every single female contestant of every single previous DOA tournament, saying that the 4th one would be hosted on his island. This was a lie, and all those who had arrived just kinda said, alright, and hung out for 2 weeks. This is the impetus for the now infamous sister series of the DOA games, the Xtreme Beach Volleyball spin-off games, or just Xtreme. For those who may not know, during its announcement and release, Xtreme Beach Volleyball had garnered the ire of the public eye for, pretty obvious reasons. The entire appeal of the game was literally just,
Look at all these bad bitches.
and many had questioned whether or not this blatant objectification of women was something that could be respected as a video game at all, much less sold in public stores internationally. Truth be told, the actual gameplay of Xtreme Beach Volleyball isn't anything crazy. It's honestly pretty chill, dare I say somewhat relaxing. It's literally just the female cast of the previous games participating in leisurely matches of volleyball, or pool hopping, or even gambling at a virtual casino to earn Zack dollars. It also featured an extensive relationship/friendship system where the various women on the island can grow to become good friends through gift giving and other interactions. Because let's be honest, there's no greater cause for a lifelong friendship than a nice sand dollar. This system, despite being a nice idea for some of the only progression that exists in this game, completely contradicts pre-existing rivalries established in DOA's lore. Characters that would normally be at each other's throats, i.e. Ayane and Kasumi, who have been trying to fucking kill each other for 3 games now, quickly set aside their differences over a relaxing, yet slightly competitive game of volleyball. All this being said, this game is clearly, at its core, not for everybody, for a myriad of reasons, with most being self-explanatory if you look at the gameplay on your screen. I don't really know who this game is for. It's certainly not my type of game. Although it has been growing on me, I won't lie to you. But what I do know is that in April of 2003, gaming magazine Electronic Gaming Monthly had published an article with the holy grail of cheat codes for all of the sex-starved basement-dwelling lowlifes out there. The almighty nude code for Dead or Alive Xtreme Beach Volleyball had been revealed in this exclusive digest for fucking freaks. This was in fact a falsehood. No such code existed for the game, and many fans were furious that they couldn't get a peek of that sweet 6th console generation polygonal yitty. An understandable reaction. I totally get it. Xtreme Beach Volleyball was such a smash hit, it spawned 5 more games just like it. And I will not be talking about those anywhere else in this video. Unfortunately, this is the last time they'll even be mentioned. They aren't necessarily conducive to the greater narrative in DOA, and I don't personally find them to be the enthralling harem experience Team Ninja is marketing. Also, I don't own them. I'm not buying them for this video either. Your boy isn't made of money. Itagaki really is a man of many talents. He can make a game like this, and then immediately after, turn around and create
the world's
best action game, running on the world's most powerful hardware, the Xbox 360. Bravo. Bravo! I kneel. You don't see Kami or Harada doing shit like this. Anyways, back to DOA 3. The next contestant that's seen some development is the wise martial arts master Genfu, who first joined the premier tournament to win enough money to treat his ailing granddaughter. First tournament clearly didn't work out. Second tournament was to raise money for research surrounding his granddaughter's illness. This time around, she's doing much better, but Genfu still needs a little more money to pay for her full rehabilitation. So he must fight once again. At some point during the past 3 tournaments, Genfu had picked up an apprentice, a young man by the name of Elliot. The two had been training at the time of the 3rd tournament, and Elliot just so happened to have the misfortune of encountering Hayate and Ayane, who were working their way up to Omega at the time. The two duos have a friendly sparring match, and after the fact, Genfu informs Elliot that he's gotta man the fuck up and take his position as master someday. Elliot, being literally 16 at this time, makes the point that he's still far too inexperienced to step up to the plate. Ayane, of course, has an issue with this because for some reason she just has an issue with everyone. Slaps the poor kid, calls him a massive pussy, and that he's being a huge bitch. He just kind of accepts this. I mean, I would too. I mean, come on. And says he'll do his best to improve, and hopes they cross paths again someday. Finally, we need to talk about Elena Douglas, and everything that's going on with her, and covering Doatech's conspiracies. As I had mentioned earlier, Elena competes in the 3rd DOA tournament because she's quite literally been forced to. After her fight with Hayate, she's confronted by Christy, who was, up until now, masquerading as her assistant in hopes to get close enough to eventually kill her, reveals her true purpose, and tries to fucking murder Elena. Being Elena's bodyguard, Bayman manages to stop Christy before she's able to even lay a finger on her. He states that he's not just here as a bodyguard for Elena, he's also here to kill Donovan for betraying him all the way back in the 1st tournament. The two then begin interrogating Christy on info regarding Mist, but right as the questioning begins, Kasumi Alpha shows up out of literally fucking nowhere, and overhearing the conversation about someone assassinating her creator, starts immediately throwing hands. Amidst the chaos, Christy manages to escape, and Elena manages to fend off Alpha for the time being. Once again, all Elena is left with is a lead, but no concrete answers on just what is Mist's endgame. With that out of the way, that's all the important events pertaining to the 3rd DOA tournament, and believe it or not, this is just the build-up for the next 2. Shit is about to go down. DOA 4 is something of a climax to the overarching War on Doatech arc we've been dealing with since DOA 1, and it picks up where we left off with Elena. She's fully inherited the role of Doatech CEO, and is chilling on the Freedom Survivor until she receives a FaceTime from Victor Donovan, head of Doatech's Mist division. Given the fact that Mist has Doatech, and by extension Elena, under their thumb, Donovan acrimoniously congratulates her on the big promotion and starts talking business with the new CEO. He unveils his big plan, Project Alpha, to Elena, but in an innocuous manner that makes it seem like a beneficial venture for the company. Elena doesn't buy it, probably because this guy literally tried to have her killed not too long ago, but also because this plan generally just doesn't make sense in the name of protecting interests. Wanting to stop Mist and the success of Project Alpha on her own terms, she decides to launch yet another DOA tournament, and enter as a contestant once again. Soon enough, word gets out, and we're back to the usual suspects. Hayate, now leader of the Tenjinmon sect, and by extension the entire Mugen Tenshin clan, decides he's had enough of Doatek's shit, and begins planning a final, clan-wide assault to destroy the company for good. Kasumi, now absolved of her Nukenin status, and living peacefully in the village with her brother alive and well for the first time in ages, isn't all too excited to hear that Hayate's putting himself in huge danger with Doatek again. In a last-ditch effort to preserve the little sense of normalcy she's had in forever, tries to convince Hayate to stay and just forget about Doatek and live a peaceful life. Ayane, who had resolved to accompany Hayate in his journey to destroy Doatek, was having none of this shit, and, still holding a grudge against Kasumi, beats the shit out of her so Hayate can go about his way unbothered. So far, that's 2 contestants returning. Next up, we have our boy in black, Ryu Hayabusa, who is yet again being called upon by the CIA to do their bidding. Honestly, this is just going to be the standard post-Ninja Gaiden 2. Basically anything Ryu's involved in after this point is going to be CIA related. Long gone are the days of him fighting for his clan's interests or to keep a friend's promise. Nah, he's on his special agent shit now. Anyways, Project Alpha is a threat to international security, and Ryu is just too good at his job to sit this one out. With 3 powerful shinobi assembled, they begin their infiltration of Doatek's monolithic Tri-Tower HQ building. And by infiltrate I mean cause a metric fuckton of property damage on their way in. I mean, we watched Ryu take down an airship over the course of an entire mission in Ninja Gaiden Black, but Hayate does it in a fraction of the time with like 1 fucking arrow here, dude. Honestly, this whole cinematic just makes me wonder why we never got a Ninja Gaiden game with Hayate as a playable character. Clearly, he's on Ryu's level and is just as capable of pulling off as much crazy shit as our boy in black. I guess getting his sword in Ninja Gaiden 3 is about as close as we'll ever get. Anyways, the 3 ninjas fight their way through the tournament, where we see our usual subjects such as Tina, Bulk Bogan, Janli, and Lei Fang, as well as some of the fresher faces from the last tournament like Hitomi and Elliot. Going down the list, we have Tina, who has returned to the DOA tournament for the 4th consecutive time in a row. Following the success of her previous 2 career opportunities stemming from her past participation, she's now dead set on using her DOA popularity to become a rock star. As you might have guessed, her father is here too. And yeah, he's here for the reasons you already suspect. He's getting real fucking tired of Tina's shit, and out of paternal love and instinct, enters the fray to take her on once more, and try to keep her grounded in the world of professional wrestling. Jan Lee's here too, for no other reason than looking for a good fight, and wherever Jan Lee goes, Lei Fang just so happens to follow. Elena, Christy, and Bayman all return as well, and they straight up have a whole B-plot running along the main Shinobi Cat's A-plot, where they aren't strictly participating in the tournament itself, but rather fighting amongst themselves within the background. It doesn't pick up much steam until a bit later into the actual tournament, but to sum it up, Elena is here to personally shut down Project Alpha and put Doatek to rest on her own terms. Christy, after failing to kill Elena in the last tournament, is now utterly obsessed with seeing her assassination through by her own hands, and her hands only. Bayman is simply here to kill Donovan, no further inquiries. I don't know why Donovan doesn't just pay Bayman the money he never got for killing Fane Douglas. He'd probably just take it and then give up and go home or something, but I guess this guy must get off to people really, really wanting him dead, because that makes 2 people specifically out for his blood this tournament. Then there's the newer additions, like Hitomi, joining the 4th tournament in an effort to save her father's failing dojo, which went under after he fell ill with an unknown disease. The catch to this is that she's not here for the prize money, she's actually here to find Hayate, or Ain, since she believes he's the dojo's only hope. You might remember that Hayate trained at that very dojo alongside Hitomi as an amnesiac. So with him being a prodigious martial artist with a connection to her family dojo, he's really her last hope in terms of getting it back on track. DOA 4 sees the official tournament debut of Elliot, Genfu's apprentice and replacement. Old man paid for his granddaughter's treatment, so he's got no reason to partake anymore. Elliot, on the other hand, still lacks confidence in his fighting abilities. Mostly concerned with not being worthy of surpassing his master, Elliot enters the 4th DOA tournament at the ripe old age of 16 to prove his worth. Brad Wong is still here, nothing new with this guy, he's still a stinky drunk bastard. His promotional render for this game's marketing looks so out of place too. This doesn't feel like a fighting game ad, it feels like they're trying to sell me water or some shit. We've also got Kokoro, who by and large isn't really all too significant right now. This was the same girl that found Kasumi passed out on the side of the road in the last tournament, when she was still on the run for the Mugen Tenshin clan. We'll get to her when she's relevant. Right now I'm just acknowledging her existence briefly since this is her debut game. Lastly, we have La Mariposa, a luchadora who we've actually already met. She's Lisa Hamilton, the same Doatech scientist who nearly shot Kasumi and escaped with Alpha back in DOA 2. She's competing in the tournament for reasons unknown. I just kind of assume she's here as a means to keep an eye on things. Back onto the main plotline. Our main three end up getting separated midway through, and Ryu splits off from the tournament to locate Hayate, leaving Ayane to fend off the other contestants by her lonesome. But, as fate would have it, we actually have a surprise contestant. Kasumi ended up in the 4th DOA tournament as well, to once again bring Hayate back home safe. She runs into Elena and questions her as to why exactly Doatech refuses to leave her people the fuck alone for once, to which Elena just calls her a big dummy that got tricked, and that she doesn't understand the bigger picture. Kasumi retorts with a pretty good question. Why'd she even take the role as Doatech's CEO if the company has done basically nothing but ruin her life? Elena certainly has her reasons for doing so, but the most she lets Kasumi in on is that Project Alpha is nearing completion, and worst of all, it's based on Kasumi's genetic makeup. This is no surprise, Project Alpha debuted with Kasumi Alpha, but Doatech wasn't exactly satisfied with the level of research that they conducted, and decided they could go a little further with Project Alpha than they previously thought. Doatech, or more appropriately, Myst, did even more experimentation on Kasumi Alpha, which was Project Alpha's initial run, and souped her up by sheer magnitudes. Kasumi Alpha's current form, now called Alpha 152, is her perfect form, and is now a life form of pure hate and ruin, with 152's only desire being to fulfill its creator's purpose of the total destruction of humanity, and it about to be awakened. Elena does not have the time of day to be explaining all of this to Kasumi, who's just getting in her way of ending this on her own terms. Realizing she might have said a little too much, Elena pulls out the Glock on Kasumi, but before she can pull the trigger,
Our fucking
So shall you.
Ryu Hayabusa stops Elena dead in her tracks and drops some fucking heat one-liners. He buys Kasumi enough time for her to get her bearings and start fighting. And so Kasumi battles through the tail end of the tournament until she reaches the belly of the beast, the laboratory where Alpha 152 will soon be unleashed. Once Kasumi arrives, she confronts the biomechanical monstrosity face to face. Ryu's here too, but only to say, yeah, kinda your fault this fucking creature exists. Good luck, by the way. Pats Kasumi on the back and leaves her to fend for herself. The ensuing fight is nothing short of chaotic. 152, being conceived as the perfect fighter by Doatech, serves as the final boss for the majority of DOA 4's roster, and she is not here to fucking play. I both appreciate and lament how she's not just Kasumi, but with a slightly different look or whatever. 152 has her own unique moveset, including, but not limited to, vanishing into thin fucking air, destroying half of your health bar with a single grab, manifesting objects to throw her victims into, and the classic Big Bang Attack. It's great to see that 152 is as fearsome as she's made out to be, but it's not as great when you have to beat her a little under a dozen times in a row for a video. Keep in mind, I'm not a fighting game guy, I'm just making this video because there's like 2 DOA references in Ninja Gaiden 3, and I wanted to know the context for myself. Needless to say, my thumbs are fucking raw as I type this script. Please send help. Please help. While Kasumi continues to endure diabolical backshots from her evil clone, let's take a short break and talk about what the rest of the cast is up to. Here's Zack, climbing the 3,200-foot Doatech Tri-Tower. Why? Because he felt like it. He also got scared by a flock of birds and nearly fell to his death. Canonically, Zack isn't even participating in this tournament. He's just here to climb the really fucking big building. He's also in massive financial debt from his island exploding. Did I mention that? Zack Island explodes? So there's that too. Bass is chilling by the seashore with Muramasa, of all fucking people. He's gone from forging these legendary weapons capable of slaying reality-bending beings to selling oatnut bread to pedestrians and onlookers. Bass catches a glimpse of his daughter Tina on live TV, where she announces to the whole wide world how after winning the tournament, she's gonna become a rock star. Bass hears this and loses his fucking mind. He starts wrecking. He throws Muramasa's vintage TV into the sea and starts beating up this drunk homeless guy in a fit of blind rage. We got Hitomi out here doing... I don't know what the fuck is going on. I don't know the context of this scene. The dinosaurs are never really explained or ever brought up again in the series, so we're gonna ignore this. Anyways, we got Hitomi out here buying cabbage. At least attempting to. She tries haggling for a low price with our guy Muramasa, until Lei Feng shows up and legit just takes it from her clutches. He must be her fucking cabbage dealer or some shit, because he had no qualms with Lei Feng just yoinking this shit for free, while Hitomi was mid-transaction on this succulent vegetable. The two begin physically assaulting each other over this interaction, and honestly, Lei Feng had it coming here. If I was in Hitomi's shoes and this evil bitch had the audacity, the chutzpah, to not only overstep my cabbage auction boundaries, but to put on the most punchable, fucking arrogant, smug glare immediately afterwards, I too would roundhouse kick her directly into the nearest food cart and box of tomatoes, and perhaps even off of the nearest balcony. Meanwhile, Ryu and Jan Lee are engaging in peak masculine activities, a nunchaku contest. Remember how Ryu said he was leaving to help Hayate? Yeah, well, he lied. In reality, he was just bored, so now he's here. Ryu's actually been doing anything but finding Hayate. Before he ended up back here in Japan, Ryu was going toe-to-toe with fucking Master Chief on Cairo Station. And no, this is not modded. This is a real character in DOA 4. Okay, I did lie a little bit. It's not actually Master Chief. It's Spartan 458. But still, this crazy motherfucker just bested a Spartan in hand-to-hand combat. Ryu is so insulted by Jan Lee's lack of nunchaku elegance, he starts beating the fucking shit out of him. Afterwards, he heads back out to help Hayate like he promised. He was just stopping by since he was in the neighborhood. Elliot makes his way to the Tri-Tower and meets Christy, who immediately begins hitting on this, need I remind you, 16-year-old British orphan. First a murderer, now a sex offender. Someone needs to stop this mad woman as soon as fucking possible. Sometime later in this very same arena, Hayate confronts Lisa Hamilton, and surprisingly enough, actually recognizes her as the scientist who experimented on him during Project Epsilon. He plainly tells her that he's here to destroy any trace of Doatech, and ends their convo by smugly thanking her for restoring him to peak condition by slamming her head into the nearest live electric pole. With her out of the way, Hayate begins his final assault on Doatech's headquarters, and with Ryu and Ayane's help, the ninja trio start blowing the fucking building up, floor by floor, while Hayate seeks out the man responsible for his troubles, Victor Donovan. Sometime during the ensuing carnage, Hayate runs across Bayman, who informs the shinobi that Donovan is his mark, and his interference is totally unnecessary. Hayate protests that he has his own vendetta against Donovan that he must see through as well. But the two fail to come to a meaningful agreement on who gets to kill him, so they instead try to kill each other. Hayate manages to fend off the guy and the two go their separate ways. Hayate deeper into the depths of the Tri-Towers and Bayman to the helipad. And as the edifice burns to the ground, the former assassin finds himself with an unexpected visitor. Zack somehow tanks this several 100-foot fall, gets up immediately, and starts fighting a trained mercenary in hand-to-hand combat. What can he do by this point? With the Tri-Towers slowly but surely being razed to the ground, that leads us right back to Elena, who had attempted to shut down Alpha 152 with the built-in failsafe, but due to the Mugen Tenshin clan's tomfoolery for the duration of the tournament, had been compromised. So, after meeting with Lisa on the helipad sometime later, she first blames all of this on her due to her involvement in Project Epsilon, and subsequently all of Hayate's drive to destroy Doatech, and second, informs Lisa that there's no other way to stop Alpha 152 now, but to set the facility to completely self-destruct, leaving absolutely nothing behind. As she makes her way through the frenetic upheaval currently taking place in every single direction, she unfortunately just so happens to run into the last person she needed to cross paths with, that being Christy. The thing is with Christy is that her obsession with killing Elena runs much deeper than you think. Christy is the very assassin who murdered Elena's mother all those years ago, and the even more fucked up thing is that it was an attempt on her life. Elena's mom just so happened to take the hit for her at the last second. So that, on top of Christy failing to kill her in DOA 3, makes 2 failed attempts on Elena's life. In short, Christy really wants Elena dead, to the point of obsession. She's willing to wander around this burning hellscape just to track her down and have one more chance of assassinating her. Did I mention she's also hit on a minor? Just in case you needed any more convincing that Christy is a major villain in the series. Not to mention, sometime earlier, Bayman, who is still looking for Donovan, ran into Christy, and it should go without saying that these two also have horrible history with each other. Bayman fights with everything he's got, but this poor guy's just been through so much shit today, and straight up gets captured by Christy for interrogation purposes. In the end, Elena manages to prevail against her mother's killer, and finally has some level of closure she's been searching for since she was thrust into the role of Doatech CEO following her father's demise. And with that, Elena slowly and really edgily walks through the blazing ruins of Doatech's former HQ. All the while Hayate and Ayane are fighting for their fucking lives against a legion of Doatech's operatives. Seemingly surrounded, outgunned, and out of options, Ayane begins casting her Art of the Raging Mountain God Nimpo, and with being historically painfully long to cast, Hayate fends off hordes of motherfuckers with just pure style and grace. Again, seeing this guy in action makes me pissed he was never in a Ninja Gaiden title, but regardless, Ayane pulls through with her Nimpo blast, and the two get sent flying through the roof, and land safely on the helipad.
Ayane,
Hayate,
are you hurt?
I'm fine.
That explosion. Alpha 152 is...
Master Hayate.
For out of fucking nowhere, Alpha 152 rises from the bowels of the facility, and she is fucking pissed. Yeah, Kasumi and 152 had been fighting this entire time, and as soon as it saw an opening to leave, it fucking took off at Mach 5, leading us to where we are now. In DOA 4, only one of these two ends up fighting 152 here. If you play as Ayane, she calls 152 a bitch, which I found kind of funny. But canonically, both of them do battle against her. Through the combined strength of the two young Master Ninja, Project Alpha is at last finally put to rest, and the entire complex becomes entirely engulfed in flame, because it's a little too early to celebrate. Elena Douglas just hit the self-destruct switch, not knowing 152 had already been struck down, and so now the remaining cast must escape alive. Ryu's out here throwing fucking key blast at innocent hovercraft pilots. Elena's just kind of chilling here, accepting her fate as Doatech CEO, since she is the face of Doatech. If she wants the company to be wiped from the face of the earth, she's gotta go too. Kasumi and Ayane make it out just fine, and one other character also makes an unexpected escape. Following his capture by Christie, Bayman has been subject to horrific drug-induced torture at the hands of Mist for a good chunk of the tournament at this point. I don't know exactly what they're interrogating him on, but this cutscene is genuinely fucking unnerving. Although I can't really take it seriously, since all I can think of when watching this is how much Bayman looks like Doom Guy. Anyways, after Ayane had cast her Ninpo Blast, the entire facility went up in flames, giving Bayman the perfect opportunity to escape. As the flames consume Doatek's once prominent headquarters, Elena morosely accepts her impending demise, putting a close on the war on Doatek for good. That is, until Zack swoops in on a fucking helicopter at the very last second, safely rescuing Elena from the blazing inferno, as well as an early grave. And that's it. The fourth DOA tournament comes to an end. Most of our characters get happy endings for the end of this arc. Kasumi and Hayate return to their village, the latter having fulfilled his vengeance against those who had wronged his clan, and the former has a dream about being a mermaid or some weird shit. Our boy Ryu returns to his village as well, and as far as the timeline is concerned for Ninja Gaiden 3 takes place directly after the events of DOA 4, so I honestly could just end this video now and go back to making my Ninja Gaiden 3 retrospective, now that I know all the context. But that's not how we do it on Brain Alert, I mean, come on. I've got to see this through to the end, even if it means I'm breaking continuity. Moving forward for DOA 5 and 6, I'll try my best to keep any Ninja Gaiden 3 related spoilers completely under the rug. Back to the rest of the cast though, Hitomi manages to finally acquire her beloved cabbage, Brad Wong fucks off to an isolated bamboo forest and begins tripping balls. Elliot returns home to Genfu's residence, where he challenges his master to a duel as a final test to prove himself worthy. To, well, himself. His experience in the tournament paid off, and he actually manages to defeat the old man by the end of the fight. Afterwards, he literally just starts training even harder. This is my fucking guy right here. Bass, after losing to his daughter in the art of his own sport, enters a motorcycle race with his custom-made slaughter bike, which he promptly uses to straight up murder the other contestants in the middle of the track, and the most badass cutscene I've seen in any video game. Bass's murder spree is cut short after he catches a glimpse of a familiar face on this massive fucking TV screen, causing him to fly off the track right into Tina's giant LED fist. Speaking of Tina, she went through with her word and pursued a career as a rock star. And I'm not sure what black magic is powering this guitar, but this is not how you plug one in properly. I'm not even sure what this doohickey even is, but somehow it's powerful enough for her to broadcast the noise across this entire city. Jan Lee returns to his studio apartment to play sad jazz on his tiny-ass trumpet. Christy returns to her side hustle as a stripper, and kills this random dude with the classic Assassin's Creed wrist blade, trademarked. Also, Rachel's here for some reason. Always wondered what she was up to after Ninja Gaiden Black. Finally, we have Zack and his beloved Nikki, who managed to unearth an ancient Egyptian tomb containing untold riches. Though the two's jubilation is cut short when the pharaoh's skeleton reanimates itself and is primed and ready for fucking slaughter. Zack, being a man of action, activates his secret transformation and I'll just let this speak for itself. The two manage to secure the bag and prepare to depart, but the Pharaoh's curse is not so easily defeated, and are chased out by millions of angry skeletons. In case you're actually worried, the two make it out just fine, and Zack uses his newfound fortune to fund yet another Zack Island, for the exact same purpose as the last one. Splendid. Well, that's everything for DOA 4. Doatek is no more, and everyone lived happily ever after. Is what I'd like to say, but there's one pretty massive elephant in the room that I haven't addressed. Sure, Doatek is gone, but Doatek's Mist Division is still very much a threat. Neither Bayman nor Hayate even got close to Victor Donovan, so he's still out here doing nefarious deeds. The deeds in question? Well, let's just get into DOA 5 already. welcome. First of all, you've made it this far in the video, so congratulations. DOA is a bit of a jump from the Mach 5 breakneck action of Ninja Gaiden, but trust me, this shit is important. Second of all, this is the second to last DOA game, so we're almost through. Without any further ado, DOA 5 picks up 2 years after the fall of DOATech in DOA 4, with Elena Douglas now fully at the helm of DOATech, completely separated from Myst, or so she thought. Turns out, Alpha 152 is still out there, and she's still causing a fuck ton of property damage. One of the first victims we see being Bayman, now a roaming mercenary after surviving the Tri-Tower's destruction. We see him and his squad taking a pleasant stroll through a bombed out war zone until they're attacked by an unknown cloaked figure wielding a katana. Wait. Where have I seen this before? Bayman is left as the sole survivor, having been within inches of death with a big ass scar on his face to prove it. Knowing that there's only one company in the world capable of this supernatural fuckery, Bayman pays the Freedom Survivor a visit to personally demand an explanation from the newly reformed DOATech CEO, Elena Douglas. She brushes off the idea that DOATech had any involvement in the matter and that they're a reformed company, and whatever Myst is up to, she is not responsible for. Bayman, understandably pissed, leaves the room immediately, and Kasumi enters the picture, now seemingly working alongside Elena in an effort to locate Alpha and destroy her for good. Only problem is that neither of them know where she is, so naturally, Elena calls upon Hayate to assist her, but Kasumi is none too happy, saying that it's her burden to bear or whatever since she's her clone and shit, and runs out the room. Immediately, Hayate feels like something is not right. In fact, he was surprised Kasumi was even here to begin with, much less this determined to take down Alpha, despite wanting nothing more than to remain within the confines of the peaceful Mugen Tenshin village numerous times when DOATech was still a threat. So her being this dead set on going after one of their pet projects doesn't make much sense. And Ayane, who's been shadowing Hayate the whole time, feels that something's amiss too, and sends her to silently observe Kasumi just to see what's up with her. Hayate heads back to the executive cabin only for Elena to reveal that she's cooking up yet another DOA tournament for publicity for the company, and asks if he's interested. Hayate is maybe the last fucking person in this story to ask if he's interested in even more of DOATech's tomfoolery, so he firmly declines. Undeterred by losing her first possible contestant, Elena enlists the help of Zack, who's assisted Elena in the reformation of DOATech since DOA 4, to spread the word on the 5th Dead or Alive tournament to the whole world. Not only just promoting the event, but straight up traveling across the globe to literally recruit the strongest fighters on Earth personally, which is some real fucking dedication. While Zack is busy internationally collecting DOA contestants, Kasumi's been all over the world too, seeking answers on just where Alpha 152 may be hiding, with Ayane shadowing her the whole way through. Somehow even making it to fucking Antarctica. What clues could possibly even be out here? Kasumi notices that she's being followed, but not by Ayane. Bayman has also been on her trail, and immediately starts asking why he's been stalking her. Really, a better question would be why Kasumi is still dressed like this all the way out here. I mean, even Bayman is appropriately dressed for the weather. Is she just not cold? Whatever the case may be, Bayman's also looking for something. That being whatever the fuck killed his entire squadron not too long ago. And he figured Kasumi's trail is bound to lead to an answer one way or another. Ayane manages to catch up to the two, but only after Kasumi beats the shit out of Bayman, and uses the instant transmission technique at the very last second. No wonder she's able to travel across the world in a matter of days, holy shit. While Kasumi's trail has gone cold, Zack has been steadily gathering the contestants for the 5th tournament. The first one being Kokoro, who I promise I will actually get into. She's been around technically since DOA 3, but she's actually important in this game. Her mother Miyako has some very important ties to DOATech, but for now, she's chilling in Japan fighting this crossover character from Virtua Fighter, when Zack drops in at the last second. The next contestant is Tina, who after the last tournament, has abandoned her wrestling/combat ambitions for becoming a rock star. While doing nothing particularly out of the ordinary, she meets a waitress who just so happens to be a fan of not her, but her father, Bass Armstrong. This aspiring martial artist is Mila, a new addition to the DOA 5 roster. She's entering the tournament in hopes of someday fighting her childhood hero, and so, Tina offers to spar with her if she's serious about it, which she agrees to. Also, Brad Wong is here, being himself being a drunk bastard. Mila actually manages to hold her own against Tina, and the two have a pretty friendly matchup. That is until Brad shows up, who's been waiting several hours for the drink he ordered when Mila and Tina first interacted, and is not happy. With that being said, I guess we should talk about what Brad's been up to since DOA 4. Brad Wong faced Elliot back in the 4th tournament and provided him with some sage advice when Elliot doubted his martial arts skills. And ever since then, has just kinda bummed off of Elliot during his journey to master the art of Jing Yi Quan. Like literally, he lives with him and presumably does not pay any fucking taxes. Elliot even cooks for this fucking bum. The only reason I can assume Elliot puts up with this shit is that despite being an unemployed alcoholic, Brad is an incredibly skilled fighter who probably makes for an insanely useful sparring partner. But at the same time, being the resident broke nigga of the household, is fighting tooth and nail for the last dumpling on the table, and I mean, this shit is life or death. I'm not even joking, Elliot gets thrown through the fucking wall during this minor altercation. This is also where the two find out about the 5th tournament, and Brad suggests that Elliot joins, while simultaneously breaking his ankles and his morale by juggling this singular dumpling on the world's most balanced plate. The two scuffle comes to an end after an unforeseen third party takes advantage of Brad's carelessness. A fucking monkey ends up stealing the dumpling. With renewed purpose, Brad and Elliot begin traveling towards the tournament grounds, where they stop in New York, bringing us back to Mila and Tina, where these two duos end up fighting. After the matter, all four end up entering the tournament, with Zack personally bringing Tina there in his Zack copter. Another duo entering the tournament is Hitomi and Li Feng, who have seemingly settled their differences following the infamous cabbage incident, and are now good friends as well as training partners. Don't know why they're in a circus, but even that's pretty tame compared to Zack being shot out of a cannon with this DJ Lance Rock ass fit, only to land headfirst in this huge Jack in the Box. I don't know what's happening. This is all of the convincing Li Feng and Hitomi needed. Apparently, the two make their way to South America to begin training shortly after. And this also just so happens to be where Zack has gone to recruit Jan Lee, who is motivated to join only after a quick fight with the man himself. And just like that, all the major fighters have been notified and or directly contacted. They're all scheduled to gather at the tournament grounds. Said grounds are being held on Doatec's offshore oil platform, Dig, where we meet our next new entry. Rig. Rig from Dig. I swear I'm not making this up. Rig is a man with no recollection of who he is or what his past was like. All Rig knows is that he grew up on this platform and all his co-workers call him Rig. So we can safely assume that Doatec is also guilty of child labor on top of every other workplace violation they've committed. Bass is here too. He's retired from the wrestling scene to now commit himself to a lifetime of back-breaking manual labor. I don't really know why either. You'd think he'd have a fortune from being the world's most popular wrestler. Maybe he spent all of it on his motorcycle. Whatever the case may be, Rick calls him a retard for bringing his bike all the way out to the middle of the ocean, despite there not being roads as far as the eye can see. Bass, offended not only because Rig is calling him a dumbass, but also because he's right, starts beating the fuck out of him. Despite having no formal education of any kind, Rig is a master of Taekwondo, and is not afraid to throw hands with anyone. Not even Christy, who showed up on the platform sometime after Rig's scuffle with Bass. Not only does she act like she knows the guy, despite him living on this platform his whole life and probably never seeing a woman ever until now, but also keeps mentioning how much he's grown, implying that they somehow have met before, just not to Rig's knowledge. She says she's here to test his strength, to which Rig happily obliges her with one free ass beating outside the bar. All of this does raise the question though, what is Christy doing here to begin with? And how does she know this guy? Clearly, Myst is in the know that a new DOA tournament is taking place on this platform, and they're already sinking their venomous fangs in before it even starts. While the platform is being set up for the festivities, Elena pays the venue a visit to inspect the facilities. Has a nice run-in with Bass, has a not-so-nice run-in with Christy, who rudely interrupts his game of pool. She's also got... This could be anything. Elena ends up fighting with Christy, which is understandable given that she kinda ruined her life and is determined to continue to make it worse as long as she lives. A few days later, the fighters begin trickling in one by one, starting with Kokoro, who Helena warmly greets and starts chatting to her about her mom, Miyako. This is less weird when you consider that Miyako's mom is head of Doatech's Japan division, and with Elena being CEO, it's not surprising that she'd be aware of the individual executives of the international branches. But things just kind of end up getting weird again when Kokoro asks about what kind of man Elena's father was. You know, Fane Douglas. Now here's the thing I've been holding off on. Kokoro and Elena are related. They're actually half-sisters. Fane Douglas, being head of Doatech, had a seemingly endless supply of hoes, and as a result, found himself with many and numerous side hoes. One such side hoe was Miyako, Kokoro's mother. Elena, being Fane's legitimate daughter, was somehow privy to this, and I guess any other secrets her father might have been hiding. Kokoro, on the other hand, was and still is kept in the dark about her greater connection to Doatech, as well as her deeper connection to Elena herself, but seemingly does have something of an inkling due to her curiosity surrounding what kind of guy Fane Douglas really was. Elena just kinda brushes it off and plays it cool, says some shit like, yeah, he was pretty cool, your dad was probably like that too, you know what I mean? And the two have a friendly sparring session. Still kinda hard to see how these two are even close to being related. I mean, Kokoro looks 100% purely Japanese. At least someone like Hitomi looks racially ambiguous. It's a weird nitpick, I know, but I just found it weird how they look nothing alike, on top of Kokoro not even looking like a Happa. On the eve of the tournament, Elena returns to the Freedom Survivor, only to unexpectedly meet Kasumi, who has probably gone around the entire fucking planet twice to find Project Alpha to no avail. No longer willing to take any of Elena's bullshit, she demands answers, and Elena finally gives in. She tells Kasumi where exactly she'll find Alpha 152. Only the stipulation now is that she's sending the other three ninjas there as well, whether she likes it or not. Speaking of which, we're halfway through DOA 5, and we haven't even talked about our fucking boy, Ryu Hayabusa, yet. Unable to track down Kasumi during her pursuit of Alpha 152, Hayate calls upon our boy in black for some backup, only for Ryu to turn around and literally call him a failure of a ninja right to his face. Which, coming from Ryu? Man, I'm not gonna lie, if I was Hayate in this situation, I'd probably just pull out the good old Jinran Maru and commit seppuku right here and right now. Do you have any idea what this dude has done in his 23 to 25 odd years of being alive? He saved the world. Not once, but twice. Avenged his clan and his people. Not once, but twice. Dove headfirst into Mount Fuji, directly into hell. Killed the Demon Emperor of Vigor. Killed the Archfiend. The damn devil. Killed his rival Ninja Clan's warlord, not once, but once as a man, and twice as a demon. Destroyed a cursed blade of mythical proportions. Killed Bangotsubo with his bare hands, no dragon sword even required for that one. Overcame an ancient Slavic bloodline curse, and we'll get to that, I promise. Consistently pulls baddies wherever he steps foot. Is taller than Hayate, more muscular than Hayate, has a deeper voice than Hayate, has green eyes, and can do this. There's no coming back from an insult like that, and Hayate knows this. He's fucking hurt by this. This is chastisement to the umpteenth degree. Ryu cooked this poor motherfucker to hell and back with just 3 words. His pride, ego, shattered like a windshield during a car crash. Ryu violated Hayate here, and so Hayate fighting back physically is completely understandable. Sure, Ryu might be sharp with words, but that doesn't mean shit if he can't... Alright, Hayate just got folded like clean laundry by this guy. It's fucking over. Mugen tension cells will never recover from this shit. The dragon lineage just shat all over the Mugen Tenshin's legacy forever. Though, it's not all bad. After being thoroughly humbled by the legendary dragon ninja, Ryu offers Hayate some advice. He tells him not to act on his emotions and see his duty through to the end. Words that Hayate takes to heart, as you'll see shortly. Also, I lied. Hayate's actually taller than Ryu by several inches. Yeah, the Hayabusa roaches aren't gonna like this one. Ryu begins looking into the matter of his own volition, and catches one Lisa Hamilton in the middle of a call with one of Mist's informants, Miyako, which means Kokoro's mom possibly knows more than she has ever let on. Lisa's here to meet a client for Project Alpha, but Ryu stepped in to make sure none of that shit happens. Later on, Zack manages to track Ryu down, and pleads with them to ride in his Zack-copter to the Freedom Survivor, to which Ryu politely declines. I'd imagine he has something of an aversion to any kind of aircraft, considering his track record. Ryu does say he'd meet with her soon on his own terms. Undeterred, Zack locates Hayate next, who's out in a battlefield fighting Bayman. The two are once again at it over who gets to hunt down the identical target they're both after. Just this time it's Kasumi. Zack interrupts their match, telling them both to get in the chopper. As a matter of fact, Ayane's already here, and she's just wearing normal clothes for whatever reason. I guess they found her in the middle of a Jewel Osco parking lot or some shit. Bayman refuses to enter, saying that he's sure he's a fine pilot, but he just finds Zack to be creepy. And this could also be racially motivated, but the reason doesn't matter. The two start fighting and Bayman ends up as the victor. He tells Zack to let Elena know that he's got other plans and isn't interested in her scheme. Hayate, on the other hand, willingly endures an awkward helicopter ride with Zack. Only Zack does actually break the silence with something of intrigue, that being Mist. The problem is though, Zack has no fucking clue what Mist is. He's only heard about it. So the whole conversation was basically fucking worthless. The ninja trio meet in Elena's executive suite, where she gives them a quick rundown on the Mist situation. Essentially, Alpha 152's test run in DOA 4 was unsuccessfully a success. So much so that Mist had approved it for mass production to sell to national militaries worldwide. Because remember, Doatech started as an international weapons company, and had remained such until the company had reformed under Elena's leadership. Hayate's shocked to hear that he and his friends and family had been subject to human experimentation for the sake of capitalism, which all I gotta say is, man, welcome to the club, buddy. Ryu assures his friend that the company is in good hands now, and that Mist is the current threat, since Project Alpha is still very much alive under Donovan's leadership. Elena basically says that Doatech's Dig platform has seen some very suspect activity, with numerous Mist-related personnel being spotted red-handed on site, corrupting the very ground they stand on with their putrid stink. Namely, Lisa Hamilton. She seemingly knows the most out of anybody, which is why Kasumi was sent there to begin with. Elena suspects that there's much more to the innocuous oil rig than what meets the eye. Seeing as she can't really do much herself, since she's got to keep international optics in a positive light, she's made arrangements for the three to slip in during the tournament undetected, and do what they do best. Start wrecking. Meanwhile, on the tournament grounds, the quarterfinals have already begun. The first matchup being Mr. Strong, a mysterious masked fighter who you should totally not confuse with Bass Armstrong and Tina Armstrong. And man, these two have pretty similar fighting styles. Almost makes you think they're distantly related somehow. Either way, the masked fighter makes short work of Tina, and she amicably accepts defeat, just happy she was able to wrestle in front of a crowd again for old time's sake. With that out of her system, she reveals to the world, once again, that she has far greater ambitions outside the ring. Because a world-famous Hollywood star / rock star wasn't enough, Tina announces that she's running for fucking governor in the next election. and is officially beginning her career in politics. Although Bass is clearly pissed at the idea, I think he's just overall happy he humbled her in the ring for once. Up next is Elliot versus Kokoro, who effortlessly wipes the floor with her using his mastery over Jingi Kwan, so he advances to the next quarter. Hitomi ends up getting matched with Mila, and despite having so many chapters in this game dedicated to hyping her up as the new character, instantly fucking jobs to the German karate prodigy, which, I don't know, I expected them to do more with Mila's character for the tournament plot, since she has so much focus in the game's story. She's one of the first characters we're introduced to besides Bayman. Well, not in this video, because I structured it differently, but in-game, she has quite a bit of screen time compared to some of the other contestants, so I was surprised they would just job her out to Hitomi like this, but I guess I'm just nitpicking now. Anyways, Hitomi advances and faces Elliot in the next match. And Elliot must have been smoking some fat dick between rounds because he's just no match for this type of shit. Hitomi slaps this British twink upside the noggin and leaves his pride in absolute shambles, in addition to advancing to the finals. Meanwhile, Jan Lee went toe-to-toe with his eternal rival, Li Feng, who, for the 5th tournament in a row, fails to even remotely be a challenge for the young warrior, and is defeated by his hand once again. Although it's a little hard to blame her. The two had a pretty awkward and unwanted encounter sometime before the tournament, which was what probably prevented Li Feng from locking in and focusing on the battle. But even then, Jan Lee seemed to be totally unfazed, so it seems to be a her problem. Jan Lee advances to the semifinals where he faces Mr. Strong, who seemed to have the championship in the bag when facing Tina, but now hardly seems to even be an opponent for the hot-blooded fighter before him. Jan Lee lays the fucking smackdown on this mysterious figure before heading to the championship finals, where he'll meet Hitomi face to face for the title of victor. Prior to the final match, Hayate and Ayane arrive on the platform, and before they make their pursuit towards Kasumi, Hayate makes a short detour to check in on Hitomi, who's just kinda chilling on this random balcony outside the tournament grounds. It's always nice to see these two reunite, considering how Hitomi's really the only reason Hayate was able to get back on his feet and gradually reel back from his amnesia. The two have a friendly spar to get Hitomi fired up for her final match, and they depart shortly after. Probably wasn't a great idea since all that muscle fatigue is what definitely caused Hitomi to get slapped around like a wet noodle by Jan Lee. A shame, she really should have saved her energy for this. Either way, Jan Lee is the crowned victor of the 5th Dead or Alive tournament. And wow, he's not even here to celebrate. Cool. While all this was going down, Kasumi's infiltrated the lowest levels of Doatech's offshore platform, and seemingly stumbles into a massive, high-tech research facility. And Lisa seems to be completely unsurprised that she's here, and only kicks in her survival instincts when she tries to approach 152's chamber. Kasumi, being a woman on a mission, has no time for this tomfoolery, and makes quick work of the scientist. Entering 152's chamber, it's, well, yeah, that's 152 alright. And all of her weird, slimy, translucent glory. It also means I'm subjecting myself to yet another wonderful Alpha 152 fight. Once again, Kasumi finds herself facing the Pellucid Menace in hand-to-hand combat. And this time, she's determined to put her down for good. While Kasumi's got her hands full with that, Ayane and Hayate are still making their way to her, only to get interrupted by Bayman, who Hayate assumes is here for Donovan, given the last time they met in similar circumstances. But no, Bayman too is here for Kasumi. So just like the 4th tournament, and just like earlier, instead of being like, yeah, let's find her together, the two end up fighting. Hayate ends up winning and Bayman literally just kinda gives up and works together anyways, so that little scrap was kinda useless, but whatever. Kasumi ends up prevailing against 152, finally destroying her evil clone forever, and jumps back to the surface, conveniently enough, right in front of Hayate, Bayman, and Ayane, with Bayman keeping his promise and letting the two ninja fulfill their sacred code. Hayate begins laying the fucking smackdown on his poor sister, but the fight is soon brought to a grinding halt after a security helicopter allows Kasumi to escape, so naturally the two pursue. and Hayate's out here blasting helicopters out of the sky. Ryu is somehow on this one and takes it down single-handedly, leaving just the two shinobi to their prey. What ensues is one of the rare times we get to see these characters draw their weapons and get real fucking violent. Well, maybe not Ayane. We've seen her do a lot of crazy shit before, but that's besides the point. Hayate and Ayane aren't just here to apprehend Kasumi, they're out for blood, which is shocking considering, yeah, Ayane had it out for Kasumi for a while, but Hayate, Kasumi's his full-blooded sister, so it's a pretty big change in character to see him like this. The two close Kasumi into a corner, leaving her wide open for the killing blow. And yeah, Ayane and Hayate fucking kill Kasumi in cold blood on the spot. Hayate personally delivers the final slash into his own flesh and blood. The same sister that risked her life numerous times for both his safety and honor now lies dead by his own hands. The two quickly move along as if they have even more unfinished business to attend to and leave without as much as a second thought. Now you might be thinking, okay, what the fuck just happened? Which is understandable, it's a lot to take in, I know, but just bear with me. Ryu arrives in her fleeting moments to hear her last words, simply muttering the name of her brother, before the last bit of life leaves her body. Then, her body flashes neon green, and Ryu mentions that she was burdened with a cruel fate, but nonetheless, she was still a life like any other, merely in the wrong place at the wrong time. He also implies that Donovan is the reason everyone's gathered here, instead of coming of their own volition, and just can't figure out exactly why. This probably just creates even more questions than it answers, but I promise things will make sense soon. Sort of. Bayman accompanies the two Mugen Tenshin shinobi into the belly of the beast, as a massive bulkhead unveils the entrance to Mist's underwater laboratory, hidden underneath Doatek's offshore platform the entire time. Bayman only escorts the two so far, and bails out a mere 9 steps into the lab grounds, probably realizing these two are far more capable than he is at this point. Poor guy. The two descend into the innermost nadir of the lab to find... what? Fucking Rig? As it turns out, Rig was with Mist the whole time, and it's really out of the blue. It's sorta implied that Rig might be some kind of genetically modified freak, partly influenced by this very lab on the platform, considering he grew up on the oil rig and has no memory of his childhood. It could also just be a farce and is simply another one of Donovan's goons. Either way, he wants to throw down with Hayate and Ayane, and the former volunteers first. Hayate, though extremely exhausted, puts up a good fight. That is until he's unexpectedly pierced by several hundred spears of light and is completely immobilized. With the blast doors to the lab closing rapidly, Ayane's left with no choice but to bail out on our boy. She quickly makes her way to Ryu to give him the bad news, but he's just kinda like, damn, he fucked up! Not my problem, and gives this random bird the side eye. Although this is no normal bird. It's a hawk. Or a falcon. The same bird, really. Okay, big disclaimer. Ornithologist viewers, I am making a joke. I know they're different, I am making a joke. Hawks have had some significance throughout the Ninja Gaiden games in relation to the actual ninja characters. We see this very same hawk observe Ryu after he literally died fighting Doku in Ninja Gaiden Black, and as a result, he was brought back to life. Yes, that is the canon implication to this scene, by the way. We saw Ryu turn into a hawk at the end of Ninja Gaiden Black. Hawks are used as checkpoints in Ninja Gaiden 3. To sum it up, hawks in Japanese culture are significant for a number of reasons. They symbolize strength and honor, and most importantly, in the context of Ninja Gaiden or DOA, they're traditionally seen as guardian spirits or just generally sacred critters that ward off evil or otherwise negative influences. The hawk serves as the guardian spirit for the Hayabusa clan, as well as a messenger. This hawk is on its way to deliver one such message back to the Mugen Tenshin village, where Kasumi is alive and well, apparently never even having left the village to begin with. Muramasa, being Ryu's homeboy, relays the Hawk's message to Kasumi, letting her know shit is getting really bad at Mist's lab, and they're gonna need all the help they can get. Ryu's still out here one-shotting choppers with his Spirit Ball technique, which really makes you wonder where the fuck this move was in literally every Ninja Gaiden game ever. Would have been really useful in the military base in Vigor, that's all I'm gonna say. Soon enough, Kasumi, well, real Kasumi, makes her way to the platform. She runs into Christy, who tries to stop her, but it's no use. Kasumi's not here to play any fucking games. Hayate's been seemingly incapacitated by what I can only describe as a fucking biblical bloodline curse that manifested as piercing rays of blinding light. It's anyone's guess what kind of condition the poor guy's in now. Kasumi tries freeing Hayate to no avail, only to be confronted by Rig, who she dispatches without any issues. Rig just kinda commits suicide afterwards. I don't know what this guy's endgame is. Lisa walks in on Kasumi attempting to free Hayate and drops the bad news. What's happening to Hayate is the result of Rig somehow reactivating Project Epsilon, which is for whatever reason causing lasers to shoot out of Hayate's torso. Like, wasn't Epsilon just some kind of genetic modification? This is straight up nightmare fuel. Lisa has something of a change of heart and starts working on freeing Hayate from his metamorphosis. Suddenly, the worst comes to pass. The room shifts to reveal dozens of Alpha 152s, and worst of all, Phase 4 of Project Alpha, essentially Kasumi Alpha's ultimate form. Phase 4 is 152, but on steroids. She, or it, is capable of perfectly mimicking whoever or whatever it happens to be fighting, and cataloging it to switch between fighting styles whenever it requires. Basically, it is the perfect fighter. Ryu's the first one to throw himself into the jaws of danger by going toe-to-toe with the biomechanical abomination. And in case you're lost on why there is now a fourth Kasumi in this game's story, allow me to clear the air. So, the Kasumi we saw throughout the entire story with the blue outfit was not the real Kasumi. That was false Kasumi, a byproduct of the earliest stages of Project Alpha, where the most the program produced was a one-to-one clone of the Tenjimon Ninja, only with an unhealthily clingy obsession with Hayate. Otherwise, it had no remarkable abilities other than whatever Kasumi herself is capable of. False Kasumi was one such clone. However, unlike the earlier models of Kasumi Alpha, this one didn't act out of malice. She truly deep down believed she was actually Kasumi, yet had a strange obsession with destroying 152, whereas regular Kasumi probably just didn't care at all, and stayed in the Mugen Tenshin village. This explains why Hayate was surprised to even see Kasumi on the Freedom Survivor at the start, and why both him and Ayane felt something was very wrong with her, both on the outside and the inside. She was acting out of character, and something about her just didn't seem right at all. Eventually, the two must have realized she wasn't the real Kasumi at all, and fully confided in murdering her when they got the chance. Can't have any more of Mist's experiments running amok on the surface. So even if false Kasumi was more or less entirely innocent, she simply cannot be allowed to live. Hence Ryu's sympathy for her in her dying moments. It's kind of fucked up. Why was false Kasumi even here to begin with? Simply put, she acted as bait for Ryu, Hayate, and Ayane, and even real Kasumi to come to the Mist Lab and be guinea pigs for Phase 4. Now that the air is cleared and all loose ends are tied, Phase 4 has probably picked the absolute worst first fighter to demo its abilities on, because for Ryu, this is honestly just another Tuesday. The guy's been through so much shit at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if this is comparable to swatting a fly for him. He fends off Phase 4 long enough to get Hayate back on his feet. Only Phase 4 was just getting started. Hayate and Ayane begin their turn beating the shit out of Donovan's prized fighter, while Kasumi and Ryu stand back and watch. Even in a 2-on-1, Phase 4 is still holding up and doesn't seem to be backing down anytime soon, even with the two shinobi throwing all they've got. Except their weapons, cause, you know, fighting game logic. Phase 4 seemed to pick up on Ryu's fighting style, which, realistically, if this thing is somehow mimicking Ryu 1-to-1, it's a world-ending apocalyptic scenario. I mean, it's already mastered the fucking Izuna drop. If it gets its hands on the Dragon Sword, it's over for humanity. There's no hope. Mid-fight, Hayate and Ayane drop their guard, which gives Phase 4 ample time to change into Dark Ryu and begin charging a fucking Kamehameha wave. But luckily, real Ryu reacts in just enough time to cause an earth-shattering beam clash, destroying the entire laboratory in the process. With Phase 4 dazed but still standing, Kasumi drops in to give it all she's got in an effort to destroy this scientific anathema once and for all. Only now, Phase 4 has the collective strength of not only Kasumi herself, but Ryu, Ayane, and Hayate all rolled into one insane fucking package. It should go without saying Kasumi's got quite a fucked up fight in store for her. Regardless of the circumstances, no matter what kind of odds were stacked against her, Kasumi beats Phase 4 into a green pulp, and that's just kinda it. The game cuts to the fore on the Freedom Survivor with Kasumi thanking everybody, and Ryu just kind of autistically standing off to the side with his arms folded thinking he's so cool. I mean, he is. It's working. We end off DOA 5 with Kasumi walking off, and swearing to eventually destroy Victor Donovan, and by extension Mist. With one more DOA game to go, we're almost off this wild ride. Tune in for DOA 6 to see the staggering conclusion to our hero's story that will pop your fucking socks off. Alrighty, so DOA 6's campaign is honestly really fucking scatterbrained and all over the place, so there's gonna be gaps here and there, but trust me, there's no shortage of crazy shit ensuing in this chapter. This is the last entry in this series, and I will try my damnedest to make this go out with a bang. We start with Doatech, the company's CEO having been hard at work planning its 6th martial arts tournament. However, during the preparation of the venue, we're introduced to one of the new major characters for this game, Marie Rose, Elena's most trusted confidant that we've apparently never met until the last entry of the series. After a major ass beating from her mistress, Marie is tasked with locating a mysterious fighter harboring incredible powers. As Elena suspects, if Mist gets their hands on said fighter first, shit is going to go south real fast. Marie tracks down the young martial artist somewhere in Japan and begins befriending her in an effort to gain her trust. This is Honoka, yet another new entry in DOA 6, and although it might not seem like it, she's got some major lore implications here. In order to build some rapport with Honoka, as well as seeing her incredible powers for herself, Marie decides to travel the world and do some training with her, leading them to this fucking dinosaurs again. Okay, we're just gonna accept this as fact. Dinosaurs exist in the DOA/Ninja Gaiden world now. This is 2 fucking stages they've done this now. Anyways, Marie gracefully dodges this pterodactyl, something Honoka takes deliberate notice of, and even mimics identically when the same pterodactyl swoops down a second time. The two eventually run into Elliot during their training, and really, I have no comment on Honoka's outfit here. This transcends any gripes regarding sexualization of female characters. This fit is just so fucking goofy. Putting the words milk in all caps under her massive fucking honkers really sells this outfit. Need I remind you that this is 10 years after the Itagaki era of Team Ninja, and clearly they have not lost their stride. I mean, come on, this is... I'm not even gonna pretend like this isn't peak character design, let's be honest. Anyways, the point is that Honoka seems to pick up on different martial arts pretty quickly, and has developed her own style based off of countless different fighting styles she's run into over the years. We'll get back to these two later, but just let that sink in for a bit. Like, really, sink in. Think about it. Might just remind you of someone. Moving on to the rest of the cast, following the events of DOA 5, the Doatech Dig platform was utterly obliterated at Helena's request, and so Rig no longer has a home. He's been living his best neat life under Bass's roof in New York, where he beats up random homeless people for fun to cure his boredom of not working. Aside from tolerating Rig's refusal to stack money and move out, Bass has been out here making moves and has finally reignited his daughter's love for the sport of professional wrestling, with the two forming a new team on the return from retirement. Tina was going to become a governor, but gave up after realizing that the minimum age requirement for running is 25, and she's just shy of 24. Elliot, for whatever godforsaken reason, is still tolerating Brad Wong tagging along for his training, which just means he has to babysit the drunk fucker 24/7. I honestly do not know why these two are friends. Maybe Brad buys alcohol for Elliot since he's under the legal drinking age. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. The other usual suspects return as well. Jan Lee, Lai Fong, Hitomi, fucking Kokoro, who finally learns her connection to Elena, but her mom's still lacking any major plot relevance. And of course, you didn't possibly think I'd forget, would you? The Alpha of Awe, the Brute of Brawn, the Cultivator of Class, the Duke of Domination, the Emperor of Eloquence, the fiercest of fighters, the greatest of glory, the height of heroism, the Imperator of intellectualism, the Jarl of justice, the King of knights, the Lord of loquaciousness, the Master of morality, the Naysayer of news, the Overlord of obituaries, the Prince of Passion, the Ruler of Ruination, the Sultan of Smite, the Taskmaster of Trembles, the Xenophobe of Zeogony, the Yardmaster of Yesteryear, the Tsar of Zoroastrianism, the Indominus Rex, the Alpha of Alphas, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the Justice.
Give me a break.
Ryu Hayabusa. He's chilling in this bamboo forest not long before he's confronted by this giant bird lady, asking if he's the one who'd slain Bangotsubo, that big bird guy back in DOA 2. Ryu was up to that shit because he's him! And the two begin fighting. This is Neo Tengu. She's really just here as a reference to Bangotsubo and also because she's really hot.
That bitch face when he saw the gat.
This is also some of the only screen time Ryu gets in this game story. Dude got shafted big time in this entry, and it's honestly a little sad, so enjoy it while it lasts. Ryu defeats the Tengu and spares her life, provided she agrees to leave this world and return to her own, which she absolutely does not do. Neo Tengu just kinda chills in the human realm for the entire game doing random off-the-wall shit. I don't really know why. Clearly, she isn't as big a threat as the last Tengu that broke through dimensions, so I guess everyone is okay with it. As far as the other three ninja are concerned, that being Hayate, Kasumi, and Ayane, they've been busy keeping tabs on any leads on Mist. Hayate's been tracking down Rig after their altercation on Doatech's Dig platform, though upon their confrontation in New York, Rig lacks any recollection of the events that had transpired. In fact, he has no clue what Hayate's even talking about. Kasumi's actually retreated into the wilderness of Japan's mountains following the events of DOA 5, in an effort to escape the constant and unending fuckery Mist seems to keep roping her into. And honestly, can you really blame her? She's probably really sick of Victor Donovan's bullshit at this point, and just decided going off the grid is the best choice of action. Even then, despite isolating herself from the majority of the world, she still finds herself face to face with Kasumi Alpha. Clearly, Phase 4 survived the destruction of Dig, and there's not just one, there's a small army's worth of these things running around. Must be defective models though, because our boy in black comes in to lend Kasumi a hand, and warn her that Mist is still up to incredibly nefarious shit, and their plans are far from over. On the other hand, Ayane's been keeping tabs on Honoka, and during her observations, Ayane picked up on Honoka's uncanny ability to mirror basically any movement she sees, which immediately sets off some alarms in Ayane's head, and after a brief fight with the young martial artist, their battle confirms her suspicions. Honoka is very clearly related to Raido, Ayane's estranged murderer slash rapist slash evil father who was slain all the way back in DOA 1. The chief similarity being that the two both possess the ability to immaculately mimic any move they see, an ability Raido used for utter evil. But Honoka honestly just seems to be really chill, so it's hard to believe she's even related to someone like Ayane, much less Raido himself. Regardless, an ability like that falling into the hands of Mist would be catastrophic. And with the 6th DOA tournament just around the corner, the two Mugen Tenshin ninja decide it's probably a good idea to keep Honoka as far away from Mist as possible. While Mist isn't the one running the tournament, they're more than likely going to take advantage of the fighters gathered there. Riggs here just enjoying the show until Christie shows up and activates his sleeper cell agent code, which literally makes him evil and turns his eyes red. Hayate, watching over the tournament grounds, notices the sudden change and pursues him. And wouldn't you know, his suspicions were right. Evil Rig straight up calls Hayate by his old Doatech pet name, and psychically summons the cybernetic warrior modeled after Waluigi. This is... okay, it's actually Raido. Yeah, I'm joking. This is a prototype of Mist's newest science experiment, whose both physical appearance and fighting style strive to mimic none other than Raido, who Mist considers to be the deadliest ninja. Which is factually fucking wrong. I mean, do I even really have to say who has Raido beat in terms of strength? He was literally killed by Kasumi, let alone comparing to the obvious winner of the "who's the strongest motherfucker in this picture" competition. It kinda makes you wonder why Mist never bothered to, I don't know, clone Ryu instead of literally anyone else in this game's universe. The dude is unstoppable. Hell, dig fucking Murai or Genshin out of their graves and clone one of those guys. Genshin for sure would be 10 times deadlier than this fucking jobber. Anyways, Hayate puts down Cyber Raido and gets the Epsilon treatment again. Ayane's got her hands full too, as an attempt to apprehend Honoka goes awry, leading to her capture by Mist. So basically both of these shinobi accomplished absolutely nothing, which is just awesome. But hey, on the bright side, the tournament's finally started. I'll be honest, it's nothing we haven't heard for 6 games now, so I'll spare you the details. Mila fights Bass, as was her conviction for the last game. Elliot goes up against Tina and moves on to the semifinals. Jan Lee, of course, goes up against Lei Fong, and as usual, beats her senselessly. Although I'll throw our girl a bone here, she did win against him in a street fight prior to the tournament, but that doesn't really count. Hitomi rematches with Elliot and beats him to a pulp just like she did in DOA 5. Also, Niu Tengu's here. She beats up Zack for no reason. That's most of the tournament fluff out the way, back to Mist's shenanigans. With Honoka in tow, Mist is one step closer to their ultimate goal. They aren't just making some kind of cybernetic clone of Raido, no. They've had their fill of subpar bargain bin ninja clones. Mist goes one step further. They want to reach into the great beyond, the unknown. They are straight up bringing Raido back from the fucking grave with a brand new cybernetic makeover. To accomplish this, Mist requires Honoka's DNA since she's his biological daughter. But it appears to be insufficient. Also, the chick with the blue hair that looks like a child, that's Nico. She's Mist's top scientist. Blame all of this resurrection bullshit on her, it's all her fault. Christie mentions that there's one other that shares Raido's blood, that being Ayane, so she gets to work on capturing the Hajimon Shinobi. Ayane's busy enjoying her favorite pastime of verbally berating people until Maria receives a call from Honoka's Obama phone. And so the two take the bait right for Mist's underground lab. Conversely, Hayate's paying Lisa Hamilton a visit. The very scientist who basically cursed him with Epsilon is now providing him with a temporary immunity to its effects, leaving him finally ready to take on Mist with everything he's got. Ayane and Marie arrive at Mist's doorstep. Funnily enough, this is like the first time we've seen any of their facilities with armed guards, and manage to slip in with little resistance. That is, until they meet Nico, who pulls a fast one on the two, but not before Ayane can cover Marie's escape, giving her just enough time to find Honoka before it's too late. After holding Nico off for long enough, she fully reveals to Ayane that her and Honoka are indeed sisters, as she had suspected, and leaves her shocked with this information. Get it? Because she shocked her. She shocked her with her finger. She shocked her with the finger pull. Ayane gets captured, but not before sending out her messenger butterflies to her ninja buddies. One reaches Hayate at Mist's gates, right before he kills Rig for good, following a brief fight. Given the urgency of the situation, Hayate gives Rig a stay of execution. Another reaches Kasumi and our boy Ryu, after the latter fends off another Raito prototype. Unfortunately, the three are a little too late. With Honoka and Ayane both captured, Raito's resurrection is imminent, and their only hope at stopping it is Marie Rose, who's currently being held at gunpoint by Christie. That is, until Bayman swoops in out of fucking nowhere to once again battle his old nemesis. After a while, Christie is just kinda like, fuck this shit, and heads out, which was a pretty good indicator to Bayman that they are far, far too late. It's probably a good idea to leave, whether Marie agrees or not. Meanwhile, the entire fucking laboratory begins bursting into flames, sirens are blaring, people are running, and Raito has returned to the world of the living. Hayate and Kasumi manage to regroup, but only soon enough to find Ayane and Honoka unconscious, having already served their purpose. Hayate immediately goes after Nico, who tries to pull the classic Epsilon trick, but he's not having any of that shit. She then just has a whole bunch of bullshit she pulls out of her sleeves, like an army of Phase 4 Kasumi Alphas, one of which steals Honoka, so Hayate has to chase after her, and even mind-controlling Ayane to turn against her half-sister that she forgave like 3 games ago. Certainly wouldn't be a DOA game without a Kasumi vs Ayane fight, so I'm not really mad. Kasumi manages to defeat Majin Ayane, and Hayate returns with Honoka in tow. Then the four meet up with Bayman and Marie, so basically, everyone's okay. But there's still 2 big problems. Nico has escaped, and Raito has been released, which is huge, huge fucking trouble. Also, Ayane starts tweaking with this weird purple energy aura. Our ninja trio chases after the reborn madman, and we also get the obligatory Ryu shooting down helicopter with key blast scene that's been in like the past 3 DOA games. Oh yeah, and Elena's here to inspect the facilities and see just for herself what kind of fucked up shit Mist has been up to. The only other soul she finds in there is Nico, who happily explains that their research wasn't only to resurrect Raito and study his biology, but generally researching the idea of bringing people back from the dead, including none other than Elena's own late mother. This is never elaborated on as of recording this video. God only knows where they're going with this in DOA 7, but honestly it's pretty fucked up. Not to mention how giddy Donovan seemed to be in this cutscene from earlier over seeing her again, as if they knew each other at one point. Speculation aside, Elena is both distraught and traumatized, which is sad, but on the other hand, the 3 Mugen Tenshin ninja have tracked down their former clansmen, and Raito mocks Hayate with the very same insult he dished out over 3 years ago. But this time, Hayate just rebukes with he just calls him mid. The game lets you choose your fighter here amongst the 3. My personal headcanon is Hayate, since Ayane already had her time in the spotlight in DOA 3 with Genra, and Kasumi already killed this guy back in DOA 1. So it's only fitting that Hayate's the one to take Raito down, especially considering how he's kind of the sole reason why any of this happened to Hayate and his clan. The 2 have a harrowing final battle. Honestly, Raito doesn't even do much except black out the screen and constantly reverse her moves. Not as hard as someone like Alpha 152, but it's a pretty good final boss in my opinion. Just a little mad Ryu is nowhere to be found here, but I understand. He tends to steal the spotlight a lot. After a deadly final battle, Hayate prevails against the man who once soloed him in combat, and finally, peace descends upon our Mugen Tenshin crew once again. Though Ayane's a little worse for wear. And it might seem a little anticlimactic, but that's it. That's all the DOA lore. Well, minus the Xtreme Volleyball games, but hey, maybe I'll talk about those someday. Maybe not. Don't take my word for it, though. People are still waiting for that hour-long Lady DMC Thirst video, and I said I'd do that someday, too. By the way, if you're still waiting for that, don't hold your breath. Please. Please stop. You will asphyxiate. It's not coming for a long time. And so, that's all there is to it. I never really expected to make a video on these games, let alone a video of this caliber and length, but after playing through a good chunk of Ninja Gaiden 3 and seeing a ton of references here and there, as well as just not really knowing who the fuck Ayane was throughout Ninja Gaiden Sigma and Ninja Gaiden 2, beyond a vague understanding that she's from Team Ninja's other IP, I kinda realized after doing some digging that, at least as a Ninja Gaiden fan, this series is absolutely worth looking at, especially with all of the overlap with the game in question. And considering I'm doing this big fucking retrospective on the Ninja Gaiden games, I think I'd be missing out on not only a lot of Ryu's characterization that we never see in his mainline games, but also just a ton of world building we also wouldn't otherwise see. Gonna keep it 100 with you guys. I kinda ran out of steam for this video past DOA 4. Things started getting a little repetitive and I had already seen everything I needed to for my retrospective series, so I didn't really give a fuck about DOA 5 or 6. In the context of this greater Ninja Gaiden retrospective series and why I found it necessary to pump the brakes on the Ninja Gaiden 3 video, which is coming soon, I promise, in favor of this DOA one, I find it genuinely both fascinating and entertaining to see Ryu interact and connect with other ninjas of his caliber, people he's literally grown up with and is friends with. Seeing how his stoic nature is represented in a setting where he's an actual character and is expected to act like one, as opposed to a stand-in for the player, is honestly really cool. Especially considering all of this shit is canon in the Ninja Gaiden games. It's especially important considering how much more characterization Ryu gets in Ninja Gaiden 3, where not only will I have much to say about that game's gameplay and level design and yada yada yada, but I can actually get the chance to talk about Ryu as an actual character. Which I'll get into when that video rolls around. Don't want to spoil too much for you guys, but for now, that was the complete, unhinged lore of the Dead or Alive games. Ninja Gaiden 3 is next, I promise. Other than that, thanks for watching.